The 2025 NFL season is starting to take shape. We've got lots to break down here in the Week 7 recap show of the Fully Inflated Football Podcast. Let's get into it.
All we've got to do now is to start pumping.
Welcome in, everybody. I've got just a couple quick pieces of housekeeping as we get started here. Number one, this show is going to look a little different over the next couple of weeks as I'll be commencing my Studs and Duds player review series. That's going to override my time to do this weekly recap show. So we'll be breaking down the rising and falling players around the NFL on this show. So instead of recapping games, I'll be going through all of the rising and falling players around the NFL. Should be a good time. So just a heads up there. And then the other thing is, if you are here to listen to deep, thorough analysis about the 31-0 Raiders-Chiefs game or the 31-6 Browns-Dolphins game, I'm going to save some time and not get too far into those games. I'll have some footnotes, but I want to warn you guys ahead of time if you're sitting here listening to a 2.5-hour show, waiting for a deep breakdown of those games. It's not going to come on today's podcast. So I just wanted to be fair to you guys and warn you there. But let's go ahead and get started with what was really the game of the week, the Broncos-Giants game, where the Broncos storm back a major comeback, scoring 33 points in the fourth quarter, just unheard of. They come back and win this game after they were down 19-0 at the very top of the fourth quarter. So let's get into this, and this isn't going to be the classic game where I talk about the winner, then I talk about the loser. I'm going to more talk about how this game played out, and that means we are going to start with the Giants because it was all Giants to start this game. Now, I'm going to come off as a little bit of a hater here, but I honestly, going through the tape on this one, I expected to be more impressed by the Giants' offense from the first three quarters of this one than I was. Not that they didn't do anything well, you know, the Cam Scattaboo of it all is still working. They were doing a lot to get him involved, and he continues to be phenomenal. And there were some nice, quick completions there from Jackson Dart to Wan'Dale Robinson a lot over the middle of the field. Some good jobs beating the blitz and that type of stuff. So it wasn't all bad necessarily, but you see the final score where they end up with 32 points, and you know, I think there's been a narrative that, hey, Jackson Dart, for what it's worth, was awesome in this game. And I don't really think that's the case. I thought he was fine to start the game, but really their offense came from three funky plays at the beginning of this game. They have a busted play to Bellinger, their second-string tight end, for a massive wide-open touchdown. They get the big Tyrone Tracy run, which I will say is a part of, you know, Jackson Dart gets some credit for that because of how he's kind of opened up this Giants run game with a lot of the read options and how they're getting him involved. And, you know, this play was a tight end or a receiver was coming cross formation. It was, you know, one of those muddied handoff situations where you put a defender in the bind and he's got to kind of guess where to go to make a play. And, you know, that's kind of the style of offense they're able to run with Jackson Dart, this kind of read option, play action, RPO style stuff. And on this play, Talanoa Hufanga pursues the you know, cross formation tight end, ends up way out of position, and that springs open Tyrone Tracy for a massive touchdown run. And then you have kind of this fluky tipped ball touchdown where, you know, he's throwing it short of the sticks over the middle of the field, and it gets deflected and ends up to the next level, landing in the hands of Theo Johnson, running one of these layering crossing concepts behind him, and he's off to the races. So, you know, there are 3 touchdowns in this game early to take that big lead. I don't think Jackson Dart gets a whole lot of credit for those big plays happening. So I just wanted to say that, like, I'm not trying to bang on Jackson Dart or anything like that. It's just like they were doing just enough to keep drives moving, mostly through Cam Scattaboo, got a couple of big plays open up for them, and then largely their defense was playing brilliantly in the start of this game. But at the same time, this was a continuation of Denver coming out kind of playing scared and gimmicky. They did this against the Jets. They struggled in the first half against the Eagles. This has really become a theme for Denver. And, just a lot of bootlegs and screens and quick passes. I don't know if it's not trusting Bo Nix or if Sean Payton's just trying to outthink everybody or really what's going on. But the Giants defense did an excellent job to start this game for really the first 2.5 quarters, taking away all that kind of schemed up little stuff. So the defense played brilliantly and the offense was doing just enough. But then you kind of start to get this comeback effort that really began. We highlight the fourth quarter in this game with the 33 points in the fourth quarter, but the comeback really started with about 20 minutes left in this game because that first touchdown of the game for Denver happens at the very top of the fourth quarter. And honestly, this game was crazy. It wasn't as big of a comeback. It was a big comeback, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't quite as crazy of a comeback as you might have thought if you weren't watching this game super closely. They score at the very top of the fourth quarter to make it a 19-8 ball game. So with 13 minutes to go, to be down 11 points, that's not an absurd comeback, right? We see that type of comeback all the time. So I just wanted to note that, but I think this all began right around 20 minutes left in the game where you could feel the script flip, and it just started to feel like the Broncos were the better team out there from that point forward. I mean, that drive was impressive. I think really throughout this entire comeback effort, you saw a lot of that stuff I was talking about. The run game and the screen game really started to open up for one reason or another. The Broncos just were executing and the Giants were not. So you got some big completions on screens. You got some better runs from J.K. Dobbins. And also on top of that, Bo Nix started to kind of run all over this defense. He had some designed runs. One of the big touchdowns in this comeback effort came on kind of a sprint left type of play. And it was a good job by Sean Payton to kind of recognize how the Giants were lining up, and they bit on the play fake, and Bo Nix takes off left, and they got a huge numbers advantage, and Nix was off to the races, but Nix had some good scrambles in this game and started to make some really nice throws in this one as well. And then as they're leading this comeback as well, they also did something I have been begging the Broncos to do for weeks at this point, but anybody that watched my weekly preview show this week, I was pointing out how Courtland Sutton, who the Broncos paid like $27 million a year heading into this year. He's had 4.5 targets a game this year. And with all of this, I'll just stick with it because it kind of is what it is. This kind of gimmick approach offensively where they're spreading the ball around, running screens, pop passes, blah, 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 blah. They've kind of forgotten that they actually have a legit number one type of wide receiver in Courtland Sutton. And when push came to shove in this game, they started to throw him the football. He ends up with 10 targets in this game, 6 catches for 87 yards, and made some huge plays to help lead this comeback. So him and Nick started working together. I want to shout out a couple of plays there. There's a 20-yard out route from Courtland Sutton where he shows that he's not just this big thumping wide receiver. He can get open and run routes. He's going against off-zone coverage, but he runs a really pretty-looking out route with fancy footwork at the top of his break to get to the sideline and make a nice catch on a nice throw from Bo Nix. And then there's, fast-forwarding a little bit in this comeback effort to the very end of it, they throw a back shoulder down the left sideline. Great placement from Bo Nix and great concentration catch from Courtland Sutton. That is the play that got them into game-winning field goal range with not a lot of time left in this game. So I continue to, say, throw the ball to Courtland Sutton more. It feels like Sean Payton's trying to outthink all these opponents early in this game. And yes, the screen game and the run game started working in this comeback effort, but they also started to just throw the ball to their number one wide receiver. And not just him as well. Marvin Mims was also awesome in this game. I said it in their deep dive. I continue to hold the opinion that Marvin Mims is their second most talented wide receiver, yet they've been moving this ball all around, right? It's been some Troy Franklin, and Troy Franklin's okay. I don't mind Troy Franklin as an ancillary piece here. Evan Ingram's had his ups and downs, but there's been some targets to, a lot of running backs, a lot of Tyler Beatty, a lot of the fullback, is it Adam Prentice, I think? I can't remember the name, but he's been getting some targets. It's like, lean into your two best wide receivers. You're overcomplicating it with this offense. And again, Marvin Mims made some awesome catches in this game. He gets a deep fade touchdown on a 3rd and 11 that was a critical play in this game. If they don't get that, I mean, they probably have to go for it on 4th down, but they might not win this game without a really nice concentration catch from Marvin Mims. He also catches the huge dig route on that game-winning drive. He wasn't even the intended wide receiver, but still good concentration through kind of chaos to find that ball. Again, a catch that they don't win this game without. So I'm just asking for Denver. Bo Nix can make these throws. He's had some frustrating overthrows. I'm not saying he's played amazing, but lean into this wide receiver duo that is frankly playing really well. And by the way, Marvin Mims can get a lot of the screen stuff. He's a Pro Bowl return man and was good early in this game on some of those gadget plays. But yeah, that's kind of what I saw from the Broncos offense. It wasn't this like chaotic random comeback. It was just the offense started to work, and then the Giants in the meantime completely self-combusted. And another reason I wanted to bring up that, like, I didn't think Bo Nix blew me away, or Jackson Dart, Bo Nix with the 2 X's. I mixed those 2 guys up, and then in this game, it's just asking for it. But Jackson Dart, early in this game, I thought was just okay. He was horrible in the 4th quarter of this game, truly horrible. Denver doesn't win this game without a brutal interception with 4.5 minutes to go. Giants are still up 11 points or 10 points or whatever it was. And, the Denver brings the heat, and it's a spot-dropping linebacker, but it's not like a spot-dropping edge rusher or anything, right? It's not crazy that Justin Cernad's going to line up in the A-gap and drop into coverage. And he throws it right to him. He just doesn't see him. It was just a bad pick. It's the type of pick that he would make in college where it's like he's just not seeing a defender or he's forcing a read. You just have to be critical of him for it. He's a rookie. You hope he can clean that stuff up and all that, but horrible play. If they end up punting that ball away, with 4.5 minutes to go, a 10-point lead, you pin Denver back into their own territory instead of a pick that gives them the ball like basically inside your red zone. So that was a horrible play. But even then, so Denver scores after that pick. The Giants still have the lead with like 2.5 minutes to go. And he overthrows Wan'Dale Robinson on a 3rd down where Wan'Dale had a step. He's running just a go ball up the slot, and Dart just overthrows him. So they have to punt, and then Denver goes and takes the lead after that. And then even on, all right, so this is where we can talk about the kind of schedule of how all these things happen. So after he overthrows Wan'Dale, the Giants go back and take I think it's a 30-26 lead at that point. So the Giants get an opportunity to, with like 1:20, to like go and take the lead back. And that again is where I think Jackson Dart is like getting credit for leading this potential game-winning drive. And I mean, not really. He takes the sack. They end up with a 4th and 19. He throws the ball short of the sticks. It's a nice throw. He's stepping up. It was the only option he had on the play, but it was going to end the game. It was short of the sticks. He was open for a reason because he was, 4th and 19. These defenses love to, play down, top down and tackle and rally and all that. So the guy was open for a reason. He made the throw that Denver's defense was asking him to make. And they get a roughing the passer call, which that's not Jackson Dart's not doing anything there. It's just a mistake on Denver's behalf. And then a couple plays later, he launches into double coverage, a ball that should have been a game-ending interception, should have been his 3rd horrible pass in this 4th quarter that ends up losing them the game. But both, it's like 2 Denver DBs could have had the pick. They collide with each other and the ball gets dropped. And then right after that, he launches a desperation heave to, I can't remember which wide receiver it was, but at the right pylon, it's underthrown, and they get the underthrown pass interference call. It was a really tough break for Denver because, those underthrown PIs do get called a lot. It's frustrating, but if the DB gets his head around, more often than not, they'll give the DB some grace, especially in a situation like that. But no, they throw the flag, they get the ball at the 1 yard line, and they punch it in. So it's not like Jackson Dart did anything to take the lead there. It's kind of another fluky type of drive. I know I'm coming off as a huge Jackson Dart hater, but I'm just telling you what I saw in this game. But yeah, so the Giants take the lead in this crazy game. But the Broncos still have a chance. And another thing you got to point out is the Giants messed up 3 PATs in this game, which grants Denver the opportunity to take the lead on a game-winning field goal. Like, this one would be pretty much over, or at least they could have forced overtime with a field goal with those PATs. But no, the Giants also were in the process of screwing up PATs throughout this game. I think I saw it was a backup kicker and they released him. But anyway, after all this chaos, Denver gets the ball with like 20-something seconds left. You have the Marvin Mims completion that we talked about where there's kind of 2 wide receivers somewhat open, and Nix throws it into that window. The Giants were running a 3-man rush with a 8-man coverage, and they still have this wide open gap in the middle of the field. So they get a huge chunk there. And then Nix makes the throw to Cortland Sutton, and they make the game-winning field goal. So it was a crazy game. A lot of, weird plays, penalties helping drives, that kind of stuff. So very entertaining game. What are the takeaways from all this, though? After all of this chaos, honestly, I don't feel all that different about either team. I think for Denver, I'm not going to panic about their defense. Again, there was some weirdness in this game. I still really trust this defense. Talanu Hufanga's got to, play a little bit more discipline, I guess, would be the criticism. There was another play. I saw Alex Singleton. I can't even remember what the play was, to be honest, but I do remember on film, like, God, Alex Singleton, it looks like stuck in mud out there. So, like, they have some holes in the middle of their defense, I think, but it's still a really good defense. And they did a good job to buckle down to help this comeback happen. But I do think for Denver, it's a repeat of the same thing I've been saying on them. It's like they got to start games better. And I really do think the answer is to trust Bo Nix more, to trust Cortland Sutton, get him these targets, use Marvin Mims more, use your best players. Like they've been really leaning into the Sean Payton scheme. They need a little more balance. They got to trust the Jimmies and Joes to make some plays because, look, I know Bo Nix isn't this superstar and people like to bag on him, and he's missed some throws this year, but he's a capable quarterback, and I think you have to, at some point, put the ball in the hands of your players to just go win some one-on-ones and make some plays, and we saw that in this comeback effort. But ultimately, I don't feel that different about Denver. That's kind of what I said about them coming into the week. And then for the Giants, I don't feel terribly different about them either. Like, I think Jackson Dart has been very streaky. I loved what he did in that Eagles game, of course. He got a lot of praise on the show last week. We're going to continue to evaluate him. Like I said, I don't think this was a particularly good game, but there's some flashes there. This was a huge Cam Scadaboo game. He's fantastic. That's nothing new. And this was another week where the Giants defense showed their flashes. They played really well against the Eagles last week. We saw a continuation of that early in this game. And then we were also reminded that Shane Bowen doesn't really do a whole lot to elevate this defense. There was some suspect defensive calls late in this game. They got a little bit too passive probably to not put their foot down on the throat of the Broncos when they could have in this game, and they collapsed defensively. I don't know where that really leaves me with the Giants. They're just, at the end of the day, a tragedy of a football team this year. That is now horrible breaks for Giants fans. I mean, you have the 3 fumbles in the Saints game, a terrible lack of execution. One fumble is the literal difference in that game where they're about to score and Scadaboo fumbles and the Saints return it for a touchdown. That was a 10-point swing in what was, I think, a 10-point game, but they had 2 other fumbles in that game while driving. And then you have what happens in this game. Those losses should not have happened. And if they win those 2 games, this is a 4-3 football team that's kind of exciting right now. And we're talking about Brian Daboll doing some really fun stuff with the young QB and how they've continued to find guys through the draft. like with Abdul Carter and Scadaboo, and now they're a 2-5 football team. You compound all that with the fact that Malik Neighbors went down with an injury, which was just devastating in terms of, forcing this offense to operate under a cloud, basically. Like there's really not a vertical element to this game other than like Wan'Dale Robinson slot fades. Also, Slayton hasn't been healthy either, so their other vertical wide receiver has been injured. So you compound these tough losses with those injuries, and it's just like another brutal season from Brian Daboll's Giants. And Giants fans, I sympathize for you, or I empathize for you. It's hard to watch this team do this seemingly every week, and I don't know how Brian Daboll survives this. I still think in my heart of hearts there's something there in Brian Daboll, but there's obviously something missing as well with him as a head coach. So that was a crazy game. We were definitely going to spend a little bit more time on that game than others in this one. Highly entertaining. Ultimately, don't feel terribly different about either of these two teams. But let's go to our next game with the Green Bay Packers visiting the Arizona Cardinals. The Packers get a big comeback win in this one. They win 27-23, punching the ball into the end zone with about a minute and a half to go, and then the defense shuts the door, largely thanks to a career day from Micah Parsons. Just an unbelievable day from him. But, this game, it was not feeling good until about halfway into the third quarter, frankly. Like, the first quarter was one of those first quarters that just kind of disappeared on everybody. Like people were criticizing the Packers offense for only having 3 points on the Cardinals, 4 minutes into the second quarter of this game, but they had only touched the ball once. The Cardinals come out and eat up about 8 minutes, and then the Packers have a long drive as well that ate up a bunch of time, and they end up going for it on a 4th and 5, and Jordan Love unfortunately overthrows an open Romeo Doubs. Really, the worst play of Jordan Love's entire day came in that first quarter there, and all of a sudden it's 3-0, like beginning a few minutes into the second quarter. So the first quarter kind of disappeared from these teams, and then you get a lot of like defensive penalties from the Packers as well early in this game that really extended a lot of drives. They did. You have a drive-killing sack from Micah Parsons that gets revoked for a hip drop tackle. You had a bunch of defensive pass interferences. You have you had multiple offsides penalties where these D linemen were jumping early. It looked like they were going to get a stop before half. You have like a 2nd and 19, and the Packers jump off sides. Jacoby Brissett takes the shot down the sideline, and they convert on it. So a lot of penalties hurt the Packers early in this game, similar to last week as well, where they were moving the ball but then stalling. You had that first drive where they go for it on 4th down. You have the overthrow. You have another long drive that stalls in a field goal. So they put themselves in a position where you're pretty stressed about the Packers here after halftime. But they get a huge sack in this game from Rashawn Gary, stepping up, probably his biggest play of the season so far. And it might not have been a sack. Jacoby might have been past the line of scrimmage at that point, but I think it was a sack. But Gary loops around, comes from behind, and punches out the ball for a huge turnover, which this Packers defense, as good as they've been in spots, they've been strangely low in terms of turning the ball over. It's been a lot of just getting sacks and ending drives that way, but they haven't had a lot of forced fumbles on those sacks, and they haven't had the DBs be opportunistic to get interceptions on the back end of it. But in this spot, I mean, the Cardinals were driving with a chance to take a 2-score lead in the third quarter of this game, but that turnover gets the short field for Green Bay, and that's where Green Bay really turned it on. And you could tell it was just a race of them against the clock. The offense was awesome, especially in the second half of this game. Again, they were moving the ball early, but they got to find a way to just stop stalling on these drives. I mean, is a shot play on 4th and 5 really what you want when Jordan Love does unfortunately have accuracy issues? Like, they got to find a way to stop stalling, but they were moving the ball all day offensively, but really when push came to shove and they had to make these plays, Jordan Love in this offense really did. This was a big Tucker Kraft game. He was running rampant, seemingly on the Cardinals. I thought Love was really good again in this game. I think he continues to do a really good job with his legs, navigating the pocket, scrambling when he needs to, extending plays, making throws on the run when he needs to. Every time they needed a third down conversion down the stretch, or they needed Jordan Love to hit the throw, or the fourth down that they end up going for that I want to talk about, like Love made the throw. So, and yeah, especially on that game-winning drive where they're down 3 and there's like 6 minutes left in this game, and they were trying to play it in a way that they could take the lead and leave Arizona in a bad spot, or maybe even milk out the whole clock. But they end up with a 4th and 2, and originally they were going to send out the field goal unit for a long field goal. It was going to be like a 50-yard field goal with a backup kicker. Haversick's done a good job. He hit a 61-yarder right before half in this game. That was huge, by the way. But they were going to line him up right at about the 2-minute warning. But they get a stoppage in play. Jordan Love has a little talk with Matt LaFleur. They think of a play they want to run. They end up going for it. I think it was a huge moment, obviously, in this game. But for the Packers to kind of be a little more aggressive and have a little bit more of that championship mentality, doing what it takes to win a game. I think it was a big learning moment for this team, that when you're talking about this team needing to win tough playoff games, and I know the Cardinals defense isn't anything special, but I think this is the type of mentality that the Packers have kind of lacked. And to say, no, we're going for it. We're going to go take the lead. We're going to win this game and walk out of here with a win because we are the better team. We can do this. That's the type of mentality I think you see from teams like the Chiefs and the Eagles and the Bills and the Lions, to have that confidence in their offense to go make that big play. I think it was a big moment for Matt LaFleur to show a little bit of aggressiveness in that moment, and for Jordan Love to execute in that spot as well, because the throw that he made on that 4th down is a throw that we have seen Jordan Love miss in some frustrating spots. It's a throw, it's a 15-yard corner route to an open tight end, but it's in it, you got to put it on the money. You can't lead him too far to the sideline. And Jordan Love steps in a throw, nails it, knew exactly where the ball had to go. And that was really the dagger. I mean, at that point, the Packers were able to milk the clock, knowing, okay, worst case, we take the field goal with no time left and go to overtime, feeling like the better team at that point. But they were able to get some runs out of it. Josh Jacobs, who was limited and not healthy in this game, had his best couple of runs right down there into the red zone, and they take the lead. And then you end up with the Arizona Cardinals getting the ball back. Micah Parsons takes over to win the game. So it was a day for Green Bay where they didn't kill the Cardinals. And to the Cardinals' credit, they have really done this to everybody. The Colts last week, they win by the Colts end up winning by 4. The Niners beat them by 1. The Seahawks beat them by 3. Like I said this about the Cardinals, and I still got to talk about the Cardinals here. They're like the best 2-5 football team you'll ever see. So this wasn't going to be an easy game for Green Bay, especially with Jacoby Brissett playing as well as he has, and I'll talk about that. But you kind of wanted Green Bay to win this one by more, I think. And there is certainly this expectation for this Packers team to be this like dominant Super Bowl frontrunner type of team. And they're certainly not quite there yet. Like you especially look at this secondary again in this game. The Cardinals showed if you just challenge these DBs, you're going to get your wins. These corners especially have a really hard time finding the football. I mentioned the lack of interceptions, but they just have a hard time like knowing what to do down the field. We saw a bunch of defensive pass interferences for the second week in a row. They struggle to contest catches. The Packers are allowing a 62% contested catch win rate the last 3 weeks. Like that's an issue for Green Bay. They are soft in the secondary, and if you challenge them, there is a hole in this defense as good as this pass rush can be. But I will push back on the idea that this was a bad win for Green Bay. Like I said, Arizona has played all these teams tough. They were in desperation mode in their own stadium. I think there was still a lot of character building moments for Green Bay out of this game, especially with that 4th down decision. But to have this comeback win, I think these are the types of wins that championship caliber teams do have to endure, where things weren't all working for them early. They made some mistakes, but they bounced back. I'm not saying this was an amazing win for Green Bay. I certainly thought they would cover the spread in this game and win by more. But there are still some takeaways in a positive direction. And with this win, by the way, they continue to hold on to the number 1 seed in the NFC. It is amazing to me how many people just straight up consider the tie against Dallas as a loss. I saw a tweet about just the current standings in the NFC, and every other comment was about people complaining about how Green Bay is number 1. I'm like, it's just the math. Like, in your mind, you're thinking of that game as a loss. The Packers have the best winning percentage in the NFL. They have 1 loss on this season. So they are in a very good spot. They're getting some more guys back healthy very quietly. They were without Devontae Wyatt and Lucas Van Ness on the defensive line in this game. So yeah, you have Micah Parsons, and he did enough for them in this game, but they've gotten a lot from those guys when they've been out there. So it'll be big to get them back. Josh Jacobs was not 100% in this game. Christian Watson should be coming back. So the Packers are in a good spot. They got to get better. There's no doubt about it. But it was a solid win, I would say. Now, we got to talk about Arizona. I think the biggest takeaway here is Jacoby Brissett is playing really good football. Dude, this is the second week in a row. He's looked sharp. He's looked in command. The reads have been concise, decisive. The accuracy's been very good. The arm talent is absolutely NFL starting caliber. He can rip some hole shots that are quite impressive. He's even doing some decent stuff like moving around the pocket and extending plays a little bit. And it's just a reminder, like the last time Jacoby Brissett was treated as a starting quarterback was in Cleveland under Drew Petzing's offense. He played like a top 20 quarterback that year. And then they go and make the Deshaun Watson trade. Kind of makes you wonder if they would have just stuck with Jacoby, how we would be discussing Jacoby. And I really enjoy him as a quarterback. He plays the position the right way. And he's just I remember listening to him in that the Athletic did that Andrew Luck podcast, and Jacoby Brissett was one of the guests that, they interviewed, and he's in like every episode. He's awesome to listen to. And I just find myself pulling for Jacoby Brissett. I don't think it was a sustainable situation in New England last year with all that shuffle and a bad coaching staff with the pressure to play Drake May early. It probably was never going to work for him to play well there last year. But it's fun to see him playing well. I'm not going to go there with the idea that they need to play him over Kyler Murray. There's a lot of noise about that. I will stand on this. I think Kyler Murray has played a lot better in the beginning of this season than he's gotten credit for. He got some major letdowns from his wide receivers when Kyler was out there. And for whatever reason, those receivers are just making those catches for Jacoby Brissett. They have come down with like 60-something% of their contested catches and haven't been dropping the football, which is like a complete role reversal from what was going on when Kyler was out there. So I'm not going to go as far as saying like, yeah, they should start him over Kyler. Obviously, the offense is performing better as a whole right now these last couple of weeks than they were putting up points with Kyler. But it does feel to me like Jacoby should be starting somewhere. So if you're the Jets or even like the Vikings, like I think he would be an upgrade to Carson Wentz if you don't feel great about J.J. McCarthy for the rest of the year. I'm not saying they should do that, but maybe it's Miami or wherever. There's teams that could use quarterbacks right now. I wonder if you do make a call about Jacoby Brissett. But certainly in this offseason, I would love to see a team that's looking for a bridge quarterback option that has a sustainable situation around him to go give Jacoby a shot. Now, the other side of this with the Cardinals losing this game is another week of just not feeling good about the Jonathan Gannon of it all, which is it's the late game collapses, which has become the identity of this team, unfortunately, at this point. But also just watching this game and seeing the Packers not have too hard of a time moving the ball in this one. Obviously, they stalled early, but especially putting up those points in the second half. This defense should be better than it is in year 3 under Jonathan Gannon. Honestly, there was moments last year where it felt like this defense was playing better than they are now with much less D-line talent. And I don't feel Gannon bringing much to the table this year. It's not like they've changed their scheme dramatically. I looked up their blitz rate because I was like, is he blitzing less, having a better defensive line than he had last year? Whereas last year he had to blitz to manufacture a pass rush. He's blitzing 3% less this year, but that's not like a really any major change at all. But yeah, the defense just feels kind of squishy. The D-line's not living up to their expectations. I don't know, man. This defense should be much better than they are at this stage in time. But I will continue to say Cardinals are not a bad team, man. That is now 5 straight losses by 13 combined points, all of which were decided in the final 30 seconds of the game. And then the one loss was just a complete historic random collapse against Tennessee, where they were clearly the better football team in that one. And these aren't against bad teams either. Like, they have lost now in this 5-game losing streak to San Francisco, Seattle, Indianapolis, and Green Bay, and they've played all of those teams extremely tight. So, I guess the message is like, maybe the Cardinals can dig deep and rally here. It does feel like they're, in an NFC that is stacked right now, frankly. It feels like they're, it'd be a little bit too little too late if they did rally. But also a message to other teams, like, you got to take this Cardinals team seriously. Don't let the 2-5 fool you. They're a much better team than that. And I don't know necessarily if Jonathan Gannon can survive this. We'll just kind of see where it goes from here. Okay, speaking of the loaded NFC, let's talk about a battle between two now 5-2 football teams, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers visiting the Detroit Lions on a night that was really all Lions. They win this one 24-9. Bucs defense did a pretty good job to slow down the Lions offense in the fourth quarter, but ultimately it was the Lions defense that really shut the door on Tampa on a night where Baker Mayfield really struggled. So for Detroit getting this win, this was a massive night for Jahmyr Gibbs. I mean, unbelievable production. He has the big breakaway touchdown run that felt like blew the roof off of the Bucs in this game. Shows off the speed, but he was already a really good player as a rookie, but I think his vision inside the tackles has developed. Like, you see the way he spins out of traffic to get that touchdown at the goal line. Multiple plays in this game, he reminds you too that, like, he's got an element of power to his game. He doesn't have the size to, like, drive the line of scrimmage or anything like that necessarily, but he will break a lot of tackles out in space. He can fight for an extra yard or two if you get him a one-on-one tackle. And this game to me was a reminder to myself that, yes, Bijan Robinson is kind of stealing the scene this year. We've seen some crazy seasons from Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley and Christian McCaffrey, but Jahmyr Gibbs absolutely needs to be mentioned when we discuss the best running backs in the league. And I'm guilty of that. Like, I need to stop dismissing that there is a power element to Jahmyr Gibbs' game. He is not this one-dimensional speedster. Like, he is a complete running back. He might not have the full power of someone like Bijan, but he's got better speed too. Like, there's trade-offs, of course, with all these superstar players for the most part. But just an unbelievable night for him. Ton of credit needs to go his way. And then the defense, like I said, kind of stole the show in this one for Detroit as the game went on. An unreal night for the defensive line in a night where they get Aleem McNeil back. I've been talking about how that's going to be a big deal for this D-line. Like, super underrated player, honestly. I feel like people were in many ways dismissing his absence in the first four or 5 games of the season, or six games of the season, honestly. But like, we forget so easily that when Hutchinson went down last year, they still had an adequate pass rush and defensive line, and their defense was still playing well because of Aleem McNeil and how well he was playing. And he's a guy that, like, he's still getting better, super young, all that. He's had the right trajectory coming out of college, but he went down at the end of last year, and that's when they kind of ran out of juice. But to get him back in this game and to get him back looking good was major. I mean, he had 5 pressures in this game, made his impact in terms of run defense. this certainly was the best that the Lions defense has felt this season, and it's not a coincidence that it was on the day that Aleem McNeil returned. But Aiden Hutchinson was his typical superstar self. He had 12 pressures in this game, reminding you that if you give him a backup tackle, he is putting up historic production against backup tackles. And that's not to say he can't beat good tackles. Like, he also had some plays against Tristan Wirfs. He had at least one nice pressure against Wirfs, but this was last year before the injury. It's like he was on pace to shatter the all-time pressures record and just run away with Defensive Player of the Year. A big reason his numbers were so preposterous was the unbelievable production he was putting up against a selection of backup tackles, where he was having these 15 pressure, 13 pressure, like 3 double-digit pressure games against backup tackles. Again, in this one, against Charlie Heck, 12 pressures. So Hutchinson was all over Baker Mayfield in this game. DJ Reader showed up as well. He showed some life as a pass rusher, I think, really for the first time as a Detroit Lion. He used to be able to do that, but that was interesting. And then even like Tyrus Wheat and Al-Qadim Muhammad, they stepped up too. So 40 pressures is just absurd. And really, to me, that's why the defense looked good. The defensive backs got some credit coming out of this one because it was like this regime of practice squad backup DBs, and you know, they definitely deserve praise for battling, and they had some good physical moments. To me, I'm not ready to say they're fine with that group in the secondary. I think against an offense that's ready to attack you a little bit more, I would still be worried about those guys out there. I think for the most part, the pressure was the story from Detroit's good defensive night. And what I'm trying to say here is when Baker did push the ball downfield, guys were open. It's just Baker was missing them. So I'm not going to give the DBs too much credit there, but they should be getting guys back, right? Like both their safeties were out in this game. Both their starting corners are out. They should be getting guys back. So that's feel good for Detroit. And it's an example of when you're that dominant up front, your secondary, you can get away with a bad secondary, but that does kind of take me to the Bucs side of things here. This game was exactly what I've been afraid of with them, as I've been kind of like I like the Bucs, obviously, and I was super high on them coming into the year. People said I was too high on them coming into the year. But going back to last week, I ran a poll because it was tough to decide who's the best team in the NFL, who should be number one in the power rankings. It got almost 2,000 votes, and 60-something% of people voted the Bucs are the best team in the NFL. And I kind of pushed back on it because I was like, look, it's impressive that they've done what they've done so far, but there's a lot of concerns with what they're getting away with, frankly. With all these injuries, putting them in a tough spot. It's not any fault of the Bucs, and they deserve a ton of credit for winning these games despite all of these deficiencies. But this type of outing for the Bucs, you could have kind of seen it coming because the offensive line has really struggled. They're beat up. The right side of their offensive line wasn't able to play in this game. And you give up all those pressures. And then they're out all these wide receivers. And then Mike Evans, who's really struggling to stay healthy at this point in his career, he goes down with the collarbone injury after dealing with a hamstring injury. But you saw in this game what it looks like when you're not hitting the best case scenario on all of these crazy Baker Mayfield plays. I wasn't messing around when I kept repeatedly pounding the table for this John Wick take. Anybody that's seen John Wick, it's every scene, it's yeah, John Wick should definitely be dead. There's no way he survives this situation. Yet he is just getting thrown around left and right and finds a way to get out and come out alive, basically. With Baker Mayfield, it's been all of these plays where he's about to get sacked and he spins out of it, or he's rolling out and he makes this absurd throw. There's the one where he barely splits two defenders, the big Ibuka touchdown against the Eagles, right? It's wow, that probably shouldn't have worked. And he's been so accurate this year on those throws. He's led the NFL in scramble yardage for first downs this year. It's he has just been the MVP through 7 weeks. And it's look, it's not to take away from Baker Mayfield. It's just I don't think he's peak Aaron Rodgers or peak Patrick Mahomes. Like at some point, you're probably going to get things coming back to earth a little bit with Baker Mayfield. And then what does it look like if you're not hitting the high end of variance on all these crazy plays? And that's exactly what we saw in this game, right? With no Bucky Irving, their run game struggled. Their check down and their screen game isn't what they like it to be when Bucky's out there. They don't have these receivers getting open early and often so that Baker can get the ball out quickly and play in structure, right? Like with their top 3 wide receivers out there, it's tough on any quarterback to play on time, trust the receivers, because they're either not getting open for you early enough, or you just don't have that perfect chemistry and timing on certain throws. And then you compound that with the offensive line being injured, and it's like you're just asking for volatility and a lack of a run game, frankly. So, this is what I was afraid of with the Bucs. I think this all kind of self-combusted in one big moment on primetime. I think they're going to be okay. They're going to be able to get back to something closer to what they were doing earlier in the year. Like this was still Detroit coming off a loss where they continue to just wow me with the kneecap biting mentality. They don't lose after a loss. The opponents typically lose the week after they play Detroit. They blow out bad teams. Like there's just an it factor about this Lions team, and it was on full display in this game. But also like for Baker, he's going to have better games ahead. It felt like any throw that you thought he maybe would miss in the first 6 weeks of this season, because he had been so accurate and made all these throws, it's like, yeah, all of these games, there probably should have been 1 or 2 missed throws that Baker would have, like based on his historic resume. They didn't happen in the first 6 weeks, but they all compounded in this game. I mean, he had like 8 overthrows in this game. And it just turned into a nightmare situation for the Bucs. So, I think they're going to be fine. I think the defense is continuing to play well. Like Vita Vea is on a tear right now in terms of getting after the QB in a way that I haven't said about him in a while. So that's good to see. I think Todd Bowles is doing a good job drawing up blitzes and stuff. And they did get some stops in this game to at least try to give their offense a chance to come back and win. But again, the Bucs offense was just in hell on Monday night. But ultimately, like, yes, this was not the feel-good statement, we're the best team in the NFC type of night that Bucs fans were hoping for. But on a positive note, like, they do have the Saints this week, and then they have a bye week. So if you can beat the Saints, which I think this team can bounce back and beat the Saints, you might be able to come back after the bye week with Luke Gedeke back at right tackle, with Bucky Irving back to massively improve your structured offense. And then maybe Emeka Egbuka recover. I mean, he should be recovered from the hamstring. He almost played. I mean, he did play in this game, but it clearly was kind of limited. And Chris Godwin might be back. And then things can really evolve from there. So there's definitely hope for the Bucs that, all of these crazy wins early in the season, while they weren't sustainable, they bought them a huge lead in the standings. And then they can hopefully like get hot and healthy down the stretch. And if that's the case, like I see myself, potentially being extremely high on the Bucs, just as I was heading into the year. It's just right now, like so many of those guys I was excited about, that got me excited about them heading into the year, haven't been there for them. But I wouldn't feel devastated if you're a Bucs fan. It just kind of depends on where your expectations were at for this game. All right, let's go to the Cowboys-Commanders blowout. Cowboys win this one 44-22 in a game that it was closer than the final score indicated, at least for the first 30 minutes of this game. Like it was looking like it was going to be 20-15 at halftime. The Commanders were hanging in there. And then Dak Prescott just drops an absolute dime, launching it down the left sideline to George Pickens, who was unbelievable in this game. It continues to be such a good acquisition for Dallas. Like, they are making up ground, certainly, for the Micah Parsons trade by getting George Pickens for a third-round pick. And the only reason they have a chance of extending George Pickens is because they're not paying Micah Parsons. So, like, I did kind of say this, like there is some logic to it. I don't know that I agreed with the logic necessarily, and this defense has been a huge problem for them this year, obviously. But the George Pickens thing is working, and I think they might want to keep him. So I will just say that. But anyway, Dak drops that dime, Pickens makes a great catch, and then Javonte Williams breaks off a huge run to go up 27-15 when, worst case, if you're a Commanders fan, you thought you were going to allow a field goal, and it's still a one-score game heading into the fourth quarter. But then out the second half, Dallas gets a stop. They go on a touchdown drive to make it 32-15. And then Daniels comes out with an injury on that first drive. That's unfortunate. And then Marcus Mariota comes in and throws a pick six, and it's all of a sudden 42-15. So this game, this was the definition of the floodgates opened up in a hurry. And then from that point on, obviously not much of a ball game with Marcus Mariota in the game down by that many points. But yeah, this is a huge win for Dallas, man. Just a kind of a statement with the offense. The Dak, CD, Pickens combo is incredibly fun and incredibly potent. And it can't be understated how well Dak Prescott is playing right now. There was some fun talk on Twitter after Sam Darnold continued to play well. In the beginning of that Seahawks game, I tweeted out that Sam Darnold has been the best QB in the NFL this year. And at that point in time, I think it was true. I mean, he had really played flawless football. But as I was considering some of the other guys, I was really thinking about him. Like, I think Dak Prescott actually has been right behind Sam Darnold as the second best QB. And then as Darnold made some mistakes as that game went on, I think you would maybe slightly tweak it and say, yeah, Dak's actually been the best quarterback in the NFL this year. His command of this offense, the surgical approach that he can play with, the accuracy that he's able to push the ball downfield with to these wide receivers, it's spectacular. And he is an absolute MVP candidate. He is the sole reason this team is 3-1. He's the only reason they were able to tie Green Bay. He was unbelievable in that game. He was unconscious under constant pressure and just making throw after throw after throw to lead them in that game. And now you have, for the first time, it feels like the real CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens combo. Like, they had Pickens for the first couple weeks, but it was going to take a little bit, I think, for Pickens and Dak to get on the same page with a lot of these types of throws that they connect on, a lot of back shoulders and chemistry throws and that type of stuff. But now that everything's clicking here and the offensive line is healthy, I mean, this Cowboys team is extremely potent. I will say that. And they remind me so much of last year's Bengals team, where you have, I mean, honestly, Dak Prescott, I'm not sure I'm ready to say he's a tier 1 elite quarterback. I'm not quite there yet with Dak, and I've got my QB tier maker video coming this week, by the way. Very much looking forward to that. But at least right now, he's playing at a comparable level to how well Joe Burrow was playing last year, which is saying a lot. And you have this wide receiver duo that's just out of this world, right? CeeDee Lamb is an elite wide receiver. I don't think he's quite what Jamar Chase is, but he's not that far behind him. And I think how George Pickens is playing right now is actually a cut above T. Higgins, at least slightly. So there's a lot of parallels with the QB wide receiver duo, the worst defense in the NFL probably, and an ownership group that kind of doesn't get out of your own way. Like, the Cowboys are the NFC Bengals. And just like last year, we're sitting here mid-season and they're kind of on the trail, on the hunt to try to get into the NFC playoff picture. But they're turning into a team. I mean, this is just the first week that we've really seen this iteration of this offense. Like, Dallas is absolutely capable of scoring 35 points a week against anybody. And you can beat anybody when that happens. It's a core reason why this team was able to, tie Green Bay in a 40-40 overtime game, right? Was the way Dak is playing. And in that game, it was George Pickens balling out. They didn't even have CeeDee Lamb in that game. So don't sleep on the Cowboys, even though their defense sucks. And they also, again, their run game is potent too. And that makes them even, in some ways, more dangerous than the Bengals. Like, maybe that's the difference between, okay, if Dak's not as good as Burrow, at least and to be fair, Chase Brown had a good year last year, but Javonte, it's a legitimate between the tackles, difficult run game to deal with. He had some more insane runs in this game. He's been outstanding. So And their offensive line is much better as a run blocking unit than the Bengals. So it's not an eye-to-eye comparison, but look, statement win for Dallas. I'm excited to see where this goes for them. As for Washington, I mean, they're in a really bad place right now. They fall to 3-4. Playoffs in this NFC feel almost unobtainable for Washington right now, especially as Jaden Daniels goes down with another injury. I'm not going to get into that narrative that he's now, all the concerns about his frame and him getting beat up and injured in the NFL. I'm not going to get into that narrative yet. We'll see where his career goes, obviously. But look, he got injured on a sack from the pocket in this game. It could have happened to anybody, in my opinion. So I'm not really ready to go there. I've always pushed back on the idea that the small quarterbacks are more fragile than the big ones. In fact, it's the Anthony Richardsons and the Andrew Lucks and the Cam Newtons that seem to be more injury prone than a lot of guys like Lamar throughout time. Ironically, Lamar's hurt right now, and Lamar's had some injuries. Lamar's not the only example. There are plenty of other smaller quarterbacks that haven't been injury prone per se. So I'm not going to go down that path with Jaden. I think that's a big narrative coming out of this game is like, oh no, he can't stay healthy. I don't know. But I will say this, not a good day for Washington. Their best play in this game was a punt. Beautiful 60-yard punt from Tress Way that bounces straight up at the 1-yard line. Percy Butler grabs it, tight ropes the end zone. And on the next play, they get a safety in this game, stopping a run. That was the best sequence for the Commanders in this game. There's just not a lot to take away from their performance in this one, frankly. I want to have more of a macro conversation on the Commanders out of this one because they're in a really tough spot, not just for this season, but they're the oldest roster in the NFL. And it's so clear to me, the take that I kind of had on them coming into this year that a lot of people pointed out, but I was saying look, what they did last year was amazing. And Jaden, it wasn't even about Jaden Daniels. I was all in on what Jaden Daniels showed on tape last year, but it was look, the circumstances that had to lead to them beating Detroit to go to the NFC Championship last year, they had to take a 20-sided die and roll a 20 to win that game. And they did. Detroit made a bunch of uncharacteristic mistakes. Detroit was injured to all hell. Washington was fully healthy. And they got unbelievable performances from guys like Jonathan Allen and Jamison Crowder. Diami Brown had a huge game in that one. All guys that they obviously decided they didn't want to roll with moving forward because they hadn't done anything really all season. But because they win that game, because they go to the NFC Championship, they totally talked themselves into thinking that they were closer than they realistically were. They go out and bring in all these veteran players, Von Miller, Deebo Samuel. They re-up on the veteran players. Even last year, as they were winning, they made the trade for Marshawn Lattimore. They gave up a third-round pick for him. And I still like the Laramie Tunsil trade. I would do that over again, but that is the type of move that a team that thinks they're a piece or two away would make, and they gave up now in this draft their second and fourth round pick. And they're just an old team. They feel slow. Their defense is really struggling. And it's Bobby Wagner is severely limited. Von Miller, it just isn't, he's a 36-year-old pass rusher. He just isn't making an impact on this team. Marshawn Lattimore's been a complete bust of a trade. He needs to frankly get cut. He looks washed out there. But it's not just them. Look, Frankie Louvu, Daron Payne, and Dorrance Armstrong are all north of 28 years old. So, what we're seeing is now that Jaden isn't playing or not able to give them the elite quarterback play that he gave them last year. I mean, you watched his tape last year and you're like, Jesus, that's a tier 1 elite quarterback. Is he going to keep it up? Is he going to earn that title permanently as the other elite quarterbacks have? We'll see. But you knew that tape last year was elite quarterbacking tape. This year, he hasn't been able to play quite as well. He's still been good, but he hasn't been able to play quite as well. There's been some more missed throws. The methodical, pick you apart surgeon from the pocket that he was last year, he hasn't quite been that guy. And he's been injured. So you're not getting that from Jaden Daniels. and you're seeing all these other warts show up for this team. And it's really unfortunate, man, because now they're very likely not going to miss the playoffs. Their schedule is very challenging. Jaden's banged up again. I don't know when he's going to come back. And you look at this team this offseason, they're the oldest roster in the league. They don't have a second or a fourth round pick this year. And I think the hardest part of this is they have roadblocked playing opportunities for young players by committing to all these veterans. That's the biggest thing, is you have no idea who your young building blocks are, because even a lot of the guys you've invested in aren't playing. So to me, they're going to need a soft reset this offseason. I think leaning back into being the oldest roster in the league and this veteran approach would be a potentially critical mistake for the Commanders. It's not something they can do mid-season. These guys aren't playing particularly well. They don't, it's not like Bobby Wagner has a lot of trade value right now. I just don't think he does. Like, I'm sorry. I know he's like good at getting off blocks and like in a phone booth, he's still a good run defender, but he's a severely limited player. Marshawn Lattimore doesn't have any trade value. Like Debo maybe has trade value, but like, I don't think it's a mid-season sell thing for Washington. I think you've already made this commitment to this team. You just try to rally together, get a little healthier, get Terry back, which, not having Terry's been a factor for sure. But it's not that shouldn't explain the complete fall off for this team. But it's a midseason thing for me for Washington, where they need to move on from a lot of these older players, even if it hurts a little bit, knowing, okay, he can still give us a little something, but understanding like we need to open up the pathway for some of these younger guys to develop. Like just to think of a couple guys, like Jordan McGee, for example, I think is a linebacker on this team that has a lot of potential. I think like getting an opportunity for him to play, whereas with Luvu and Wagner out there, it's not happening. I think getting Lattimore out of there and opening the door for another young corner that they can hopefully invest in would be a big deal for this defense. I think some of the pieces on this D line, you're seeing a lot of Von Miller and, like Jacob Martin is playing well, but you're not investing in and bringing in young players in that edge group that are going to be a part of the future here. So there's spots in this roster where they need to kind of take one step back so that they can then take two steps forward. And it's going to be harder to do that too without a lot of draft picks. And it's always hard to make the tough decision that you might get a little bit worse on the front end to know that it's going to pay massive dividends on the back end. But like, look, Jaden Daniels still has 3 years of cheap control after this year. He's still young. Like, it is so much more than just the 2025, 2026 Commanders. It is about trying to build a sustainable winning organization moving forward. And that to me, I really want to see that for the Commanders this offseason. All right, next up, we're going to talk about the other Monday night game, the Seahawks-Texans game. Only one little plug here before we do that. I just want to remind you guys, if you enjoy this podcast, if you enjoy my show, you want to become a part of it, I have recently resumed doing mailbag episodes again. So number one, the video version of those mailbag shows, as many weeks as I'm able to do them, I want to do a Thursday Night Football recap plus mailbag during the week on Fridays. So I have a second YouTube channel. If you want the video version of that, it's the Fully Inflated Football Podcast YouTube channel. And then it also gets uploaded to the audio feed as well, of course. So just so you guys know that is going on that channel. And then additionally, if you want to submit mailbag questions for the show, you can do that through my Patreon, the lowest tier there. You can slip into my DMs and send your heavy-hitting NFL questions to make that show go, and you'll support my channel in the process. So head over to patreon.com/thatfranchiseguy to check that out. But let's now talk about the Texans-Seahawks game. First and foremost, I'm totally game for Monday night doubleheaders. Like when there was a game at 6 and there was a game at 7, that worked for me. I don't need these 9 o'clock Central, or got to be even worse if you're on the East Coast. I don't need these super late start times. That does not work for me. Like that's even worse than the Europe games that start at 8 in the morning. Like I don't need to be staying up till 1 in the morning to watch this game. It should have started sooner. Like, start it around when you project halftime to start for the first game. That makes sense to me. So this was tough. This game went on forever, and the game itself felt like it went on forever. But anyway, I like doubleheaders. Just don't start them this late. That was pretty freaking wild. So I hope they learn from that. But the Seahawks win this game 27-19 in a game that got much closer than you ever really felt it would because, dude, the Seahawks defense put on a masterclass in this game. But the Texans end up scoring 19 points because, unfortunately, the Seahawks offense kept giving the ball back to them in the second half by turnovers and, turnover on downs or punts and all that stuff. The Texans defense really did what they could to give the Texans a chance to come back in this game. So, you give any NFL offense this many opportunities, they're gonna scratch and claw and get some points, especially with a quarterback like C.J. Stroud. But this was a masterclass by the Seahawks defense. Holy crap, man! And this is the second week in a row that Mike Macdonald is revealing to us why he's so highly perceived by myself and people around the league. Why so many people are trying to replicate his system. He, to me, feels like the same that Shane Steichen feels like for the Colts right now, where he can't miss. He's pressing all the right buttons at the right time. And this week, compared to last week, he blitzed a ton. Last week, it was a 10% blitz percentage against Jacksonville. It was much more about the phantom pressures and the simulated pressures, where he ended up rushing 4, but ended up confusing that Jags offensive line, whether it was with the numbers, with the simulated pressures, or with twists and stunts. This week, he brought the heat, man. He blitzed on a third of plays, 19 out of 69 plays, so a little bit under a third, but a 28% blitz rate is more than double what it was last week, and they had 11 different players get pressures in this game. The Seahawks defense had 30 pressures in this one, and these guys were just screaming in unblocked, and a big part of this is the Texans' offensive line is inept in terms of picking up blitzes and stunts, but regardless, impressive to see Mike Macdonald with just absolute control of this game from the play sheet. It was remarkable what he was doing to get guys to get after it up front. And the coverage and communication on the back end was great as well. That's the other side of the Mike Macdonald coaching effect is he's this guy with a college background, and historically, he's done such a good job of getting these DBs to understand the coverage structure, to communicate and lock guys down, to call zone coverage, but for it to not be this like squishy style where you're defending a space. It's more about quickly converting into man coverage, communicating who you got to pick up, and being consistent in doing that. And it felt that way, even with some backups out there with the Seattle secondary. But you had some big performances from these DBs. I mean, Tariq Woolen had his best game as a Seahawk in a while, allowed just 21 yards on 8 targets, gave up just 3 receptions. He had that nice PBU. Shows off why length can be such an asset at corner as he kind of reaches back around the wide receiver to get a hand on that ball. That, like, watching it live, it felt like it might have been pass interference, but it was just the uniqueness of Woolen's length that led to that pass breakup. Ty Okada keeps showing up. He's been playing at safety with Julian Love out. And I had to look him up because he was an undrafted player in 2023. He's been around. I recognize the name, but not very familiar with his game. And the dude's a freak, man. He has some crazy testing in there coming out of Montana State. I have his RAS profile right here. So he's a little smaller, about 5'10 and a half, 195 pounds, but ran a 4.47 40, very good for a safety, but the shuttle and 3-cone times are elite. A 3.98 shuttle time, a 6.85 3-cone, both elite numbers for a safety. He had a 40.5-inch vertical jump and a 10'9" broad jump. I mean, this dude is a testing monster, and he seems to be kind of figuring things out here within this defense. He's a fascinating player. I don't know how much he's going to play when Julian Love comes back, but to have a backup like that is certainly impressive. And he had an impressive blitz in this game where he flew into the backfield. You can see that burst. He's been showing up all over the field, but he had a pass breakup in the red zone that was, it was a layered concept. Stroud's trying to hit the guy going towards the back pylon. Okada's covering the underneath concept. Stroud throws what looks like it's going to be a good pass. It needed a little bit more touch, but I think it was frankly just an even better play by Okada to show off that 40-inch vert to get up and swat that thing down on a huge play. That was in one of the many sequences where the Texans failed to get anything out of their short yardage situations. So Ty Okada keeps showing up, and then Nick Emanwari was all over the tape. He's playing that Kyle Hamilton role. He so far this season, he has played just one snap as a deep safety. One. And I love it. This is exactly why I said I was afraid about being wrong about Nick Emanwari the second the Seahawks got him, because I was lower on him as he was a guy that got a lot of first-round buzz, and to be fair, he did fall out of the first round. His deep safety tape was horrible. He had no ball skills on the back end. He took a lot of bad angles. He missed a lot of tackles from a deep alignment. However, there were a lot more flashes with him as an intermediate zone defender and when he got to work around the line of scrimmage. And my fear on him was someone was going to take him and try to stick him as a deep safety in a league that has so many of these different two-shell, cover four oriented systems. I was afraid they were going to play him like South Carolina played him. But he goes to Seattle, and I'm like, oh, he's going to be their Kyle Hamilton. And it's probably going to work, especially with Mike McDonald. And that's kind of exactly what's happened. And I'm all about it, man. He definitely fits this defense so well. I've had a lot of conversations about, the three safety Mike McDonald defense, why it works, going back to the deep dive series, but it just adds so much value to that slot position. And what's interesting is with him being their primary slot corner, we're going to get to see a lot more Devon Witherspoon as an outside corner. And I think that's going to be, I think he can absolutely play it, prove to be a stud out there, but I think it's also probably going to be better for his long-term durability. He can absolutely play slot corner and he'll still get his reps there. But I've always been a little bit worried about a 180-pound corner, even though he plays, he's so physical and he doesn't have the deficiencies you would expect in terms of his play. But I've always been a little worried, man, that guy getting thrown around the line of scrimmage throughout his career, I don't necessarily love that. I think getting to play out in space as an outside corner is going to be better for his career long-term, especially with Nick Emanwari providing what he's doing as their slot player. So that's really fun. And you can't overlook the Seahawks run defense either. They allowed 31 yards on 15 carries for Texans running backs in this game, including multiple big short yardage and goal line stops. So dominant day for the defense. Too many opportunities, though, for the Texans offense as this game went on and on and on and on and on until 2 a.m. But it was a little bit more of a volatile day for the offense. You still saw some incredible plays from Sam Darnold. I still think overall, you should feel really good about how he's playing. And he made, the touchdown throw to Jackson Smith-Njigba. Insane throw. Pressure in his face. He lets that ball go way before JSN ever looks open. The anticipation, the placement with under pressure, such high-level quarterbacking from Sam Darnold. I can't say enough about that first touchdown. And then he also, after the strip sack, fumble, touchdown, right after, he answers right back with an unbelievable throw to the left sideline, dropping it right in the bucket to JSN on a go ball. He's still making some stupid good throws, but you did see the 2 turnovers in this game that were pretty ugly, especially the strip sack fumble, but, he's forcing a ball over the middle of the field that gets picked. These second half turnovers really invited the Texans back into this game. And I guess it's a tough balance because I do think Darnold's playing really well, deserves so much credit there. But how can it not be a little bit unsettling to see the sloppy Sam turnovers show up as Seattle continues to build these kind of real playoff expectations, given what happened last year? It's something that it's going to be in the back of your mind for a long time until you go an extended stretch with Sam Darnold not seeing those moments. So it's just the only takeaway there's you don't love to see it, but he still played well in so many parts of this game. And he's clearly comfortable with JSN within this offense. So at the end of the day, this was a big win for Seattle. And to see this defense really coming into shape. And this is without Julian Love and Devon Witherspoon. Like, those are two of the best players on this defense. So pretty scary how good Seattle's looking. And I've said it before the last few weeks, but I was wrong on how good this team was going to be, especially with overall, like how good Sam Darnold's playing with JSN inside this offense. But for the Houston Texans, not as much to say on them in this game, man. I mean, because it's just, what else is new, dude? Like, the offensive line, it's the same issues we've been saying about them going back to last year. And it just does not make for functional offense. It makes for unwatchable offense. And the frustrating thing is a lot of it is just coaching, scheme, mental mistakes. It's not even necessarily them getting destroyed in their one-on-one looks. They do lose. They're not great in that situation, but it's much more about their inability to communicate and handle blitzes and to run block. Like, there's so many run plays where these guys just don't know their assignments. They're letting guys cross their face, and you have guys just swarming them in the backfield. And this is one of the worst offensive lines I can remember, because there's so many bad offensive lines that you can recall that are horrible pass protection units. And that's obviously important. That goes without saying. But a lot of those pass protection units, maybe they can be bad because they have a bunch of athletic thumpers or big guys that don't necessarily move as well in pass protection. In the case of Houston, it's like they I can pretty confidently say are the worst offensive line in pass protection and in run blocking. Like, it is brutal. So we've criticized this team for their offseason approach before. That still stands. I've defended CJ Stroud before for trying to do what he can behind this offensive line, and I thought that was the case in this game. And it's just, it's exhausting at this point. And the Texans are not going to be anything close to a good football team until they can have just a functional offensive line. Even if they go from 32nd to 32nd, they need to go from being this tragically terrible offensive line to at least functional, just as a starting point for the offense. I think the play calling has been terrible. On top of this, like, the Nick Caley hire is looking like a disaster. There's questionable third and fourth down play calls. They run the ball into a brick wall on third down, fourth down, and then they get down first and goal at the 1 yard line and they don't even run in. And it's like situational awareness here. I think on 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, yeah, let's put the ball in the hands of CJ Stroud. But if it's first and goal at the 1, that's probably the time to try the run. And they didn't even try a run. So they have all these like short yardage and goal line situations that they come away with nothing. And then I think, like, clearly in this game, the offensive line's struggling. Nico Collins ends up leaving this game, and they still refuse to like target Jalen Noel in the short game. He has on the season just one target of 0 to 9 yards. I frankly don't know if that was in this game or in a different game. PFF doesn't let me filter when I'm looking at target depth. I have to just look at the season. But I know it's just one target. And even if it was just one target in that 0 to 9 yard area in this game, that's not enough. He was clearly going to be the guy that you can actually get some quick completions on, get the ball out of Stroud's hands instead of trying to push the ball downfield so much. Jalen Noel had a bunch of vertical targets and he had a good game, but I don't understand what they're trying to do offensively. They are doing nothing to shelter this offensive line. And that comes back to Nick Caley. And unfortunately, it comes back to DeMeco Ryans, who hired him. They made the change. They fired Slowick, who had a great first year. He had a bad second year with a horrible offensive line. But it got worse. The play calling's even worse now than it was under Bobby Slowick. And look, DeMeco Ryans had another sequence in this game that was extremely frustrating with the 2-minute warning kickoff. I genuinely do not understand how you fuck this up. You have one timeout. You need to get the ball back. You're down 8 points. You are kicking off before the 2-minute warning. That ball has to go out the back of the end zone or just kick it out of bounds. There is no excuse for that not to happen. If your kicker doesn't have the leg, just shank it out of bounds. Where you are in the field does not matter. The point is, you have to get that extra timeout because otherwise you're going to get exactly what happened in this game where once you're past the 2-minute warning, because Seattle obviously was going to return that ball, they know if we just run the ball 3 times, even if we do punt, we're going to be able to take 80 seconds off the clock. That's a minute 20. Worst case scenario, we are punting the ball, pinning them deep with 20, 25 seconds left. And that's exactly what was going to happen before a, unnecessary roughness call just ends the game. But the game ended when they kick that ball in play. And that's also on D'Amico Ryans. Like that is a non-negotiable game management thing. So, look, I love D'Amico Ryans. I think he's an incredible defensive coach. I think he's done a good job as a head coach here. But there are parallels to someone maybe like a Brian Flores. There's examples of other coaches as well that are really good at what they do, coaching their side of the ball. But sometimes there can be a lack of attention to detail on some of the important other things that need to be happening as a head coach. And that to me was inexcusable. And you pair that with the fact that the offensive coordinator hire is not working, it's like you're starting to be able to poke some holes in D'Amico Ryans as a head coach. And I don't like to say that, but it's true, unfortunately. He's an amazing defensive coach, and this Texans defense did everything they could in this game with their team defense and with Will Anderson and Derek Stingley forcing turnovers in this game. They did everything they could with their defense to keep this a ball game. But I also didn't think they had a great game plan for trying to take away JSN. I mean, that was something I was curious to see. Was a great defensive coach like D'Amico Ryans going to look at this Seahawks offense that is, they are funneling their passing game through JSN. It feels like maybe we should be finding better ways to double team him and finding, a way to get Derek Stingley matched up on him. And they didn't really do anything. They just ran what they ran, and the Seahawks found their holes with JSN. So it just was not a well-coached game for the Houston Texans. A big ding on D'Amico Ryans as the head coach. I love D'Amico Ryans, but we have to be real about what we saw. This was a very poorly coached Texans team on Monday Night Football, and it's a bummer. So, Houston's 2-4. I still don't think it's season's over, full doom and gloom. Obviously, the offensive line stuff is brutal. But I will say this before we move on. They have played 3 out of the top 5, if not the top 3 defensive coaches in terms of destroying you with blitzes and loops and confusing your offensive line, which is what the Texans' biggest weakness is. Chris Shula with the Rams, Todd Bowles with the Bucs, and now Mike McDonald with the Seahawks. Those are the core principles of those defensive schemes, and they've clearly struggled with those defenses. And the other thing is, all 4 of their losses have come by a 1 score to winning teams. The Rams, the Bucs, the Jags, and the Seahawks. On top of that, they've only played 2 home games. And they're a defensive-oriented team that leans into their pass rush, which is going to be better in their home stadium. So they have an opportunity to turn this season around. There's still a lot of good things about this team. But yeah, they got to fix the offensive line. Like, that is non-negotiable. So we'll see if they can do it. It's really that simple. But I'm going to take a quick break, and then we will come back with Eagles-Vikings. All right. The Eagles go into Minnesota, get a big win, 28-22, as they climb to 5-2. The Vikings fall to 3-3 as they continue to kind of putz their way through this season, it kind of feels like. But Jalen Hurts was fantastic in this game. I think this was the best regular season game Jalen Hurts has ever played, and probably the second best game of his career outside of that Super Bowl against the Chiefs where he went bananas. But even in that game, like, he had that weird, fumble. Like, there was at least a negative play on tape. Obviously, I'm saying he played great in that Super Bowl. This was just, like, unbelievable Jalen Hurts. Like, full credit, full stop. Like, I have nothing negative to say about Jalen Hurts this week, man. The deep ball was electric and on full display, being his best trait as a passer. And to be fair to me, who's been hard on Jalen Hurts, obviously, even when I've been critical of him, I've consistently held that his deep ball accuracy the touch and accuracy that he can throw with is his best trait and is some of the best in the league. He really does have that Russell Wilson moonball element where not only does he put it on the money, but he throws such a catchable ball. He throws it in a way that makes it even easier for these incredible wide receivers to catch these vertical targets. But that's not even necessarily a surprise, right? Like we've seen big Jalen Hurts passing days where these vertical passes are killing teams with these wide receivers. For me, it was the way he was moving in the pocket, the way he was extending plays. So often this year, it's been like, all right, it's a big 3rd and 10. He doesn't like what he sees. He runs out of the pocket and he throws the ball away. He flipped a switch in this game, dude. It was both sides of pocket feel to me that were impressive for me. Early in the game, the Vikings run a 3-man rush, and Hurts doesn't panic. He sits in the pocket, and it's not like he's never done this, but we've seen Jalen Hurts bail out of clean pockets against 3-man rushes throughout his career, and in this season, that's exactly why Brian Flores ran it, because he's seen him do it on tape. But total credit to Jalen Hurts breaking that tendency, seeing the 3-man rush, say, fine, I'll sit here all day. And eventually, you end up with A.J. Brown late in a zone coverage call, bursts up the field, and Jalen Hurts puts it on him, and they get out the gate early. But later in the game, as Hurts was under more pressure, Flores was blitzing more, Hurts' ability to navigate the pocket, set up his blockers to extend plays, to get out of the pocket and find throws on the run, but to find throws stepping up in the pocket. His pocket presence has never looked this good. And if this is the start of something for Jalen Hurts, that's been one of my largest criticisms on him throughout his career. If this is the start of that improving for him, we can really be in business. And again, I have nothing against Jalen Hurts. I'm just calling out what I see on tape. And in this game, I've got all positives on him. And then I also thought it was huge. He hits just a big structure throw up the seam to A.J. Brown for that go-ahead touchdown late. And there just haven't been enough of those this year where he's playing on time, he's making the accurate throw. It's not a perfect window necessarily, but he's throwing it with anticipation and into the right spot and trusting his receiver to go make a big play in a big spot. There's been so many times where he's holding the ball, he's afraid to make that big mistake. That throw to A.J. Brown up the seam for that touchdown was big time. So there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They win this game because of Jalen Hurts. And yes, these receivers are amazing, but Jalen Hurts had to make these plays so these receivers could maximize on it. The defense wasn't special in this game outside of the pick six. The run game was a total non-factor. They needed Jalen Hurts to be special in this game, and he delivered. And, we've seen a flash or two of this throughout the year, like the second half of the Rams game. But this wasn't the Rams game where Hurts struggled in the first half and made adjustments and played well in the second half, where I praised him for it. This was start to finish. Jalen Hurts was just freaking awesome. So it goes without saying that the Eagles are going to be pretty effing dangerous if Jalen Hurts is able to play like this moving forward. So we will see. As for the Vikings, you definitely would have hoped for more in this game given what the Eagles offense has looked like for so much of this season. I think, Brian Flores, we're so used to seeing, I'm not trying to ding Brian Flores for this, but we're so used to seeing Brian Flores come out with these incredible game plans, especially after the bye week. Again, this Eagles offense has looked like a high school offense for so much of it, so much of this season. I think you could have expected a lot more for Brian Flores to have a lot of answers and bring some blitzes to the table that we're going to really get home and force a bad game out of Jalen Hurts. Not one of the best games we've ever seen from Jalen Hurts. And they blitzed 19 times out of 50 plays in this game. So what is that, 40% of their dropbacks? It's a high blitz rate. And that helped them slow down the run. They stopped the run on the way to the quarterback, but they had just 14 pressures in this game. Blitzing 19 times, that's not going to cut it. So it was just a rare case where Brian Flores got out-coached, honestly, or at least the offensive line was prepared. But it was just not a good Brian Flores game, and the secondary was really tough to watch in this game. You're definitely feeling that as a weakness in this defense. Look, Isaiah Rodgers he was a fun signing. He's not a horrible player, but he's had some bad moments this year. And this game especially, man, he gave up 5 receptions, 121 yards, and a touchdown on 7 targets, including the big A.J. Brown sluggo catch that seals this game. In the end, the Vikings end up with a 3rd down. They had a chance to get this ball back and maybe go win the game, but they run the sluggo to A.J. Brown. Isaiah Rodgers takes the cheese. Hurts drops it in there. A.J. Brown runs under it. Beautiful play by the Eagles, but Isaiah Rodgers got cooked on that play. And then on top of that, like Jeff Okudah and Byron Murphy combined 5 targets between the two of them, 5 receptions for 85 yards. Not good. So the defense really struggled in this game. And then offensively, honestly, they weren't terrible. But the reality is Carson Wentz is just an unstable quarterback option right now, which isn't a huge surprise, but that's why you're getting kind of these sporadic results from the Vikings offense. Like this game and really Wentz on the season, it's been a true case of the good, the bad, and the ugly. There is some good in there. What he does with his legs, he's had some good play extension moments. He had a bunch of good scrambles in this game. He's got some good rhythm throws that even like J.J. McCarthy wasn't necessarily seeing or making. But then there's the bad, which are, to me, his inaccuracy issues. He had a lot of inaccurate passes that left a lot of points off the board for the Vikings in this game. And then you have the ugly, which are the turnovers. You get the ugly pick 6 in this game where, Wentz just doesn't really have the full processing ability to recognize the D-line dropper. He throws it right to Jalix Hunt. Good play by Hunt, but bad read by Wentz. So they just didn't get enough consistency from the offense in a day where the defense really struggled. That's what I saw from the Vikings, and that's just kind of where they're at right now. Like I said, they're kind of just stumbling their way through this season. They're not a bad team. They're certainly not a good team. They're 3-3 right now. But there's a lot of J.J. McCarthy chatter, and I wanted to bite the hook a little bit on this one and just talk about where I'm at with J.J. McCarthy. I mean, obviously did not play well to start this season. That is an objective truth. But my take on this is he's probably not 100%. And basically what people are saying is that they're kind of faking that he's not ready to play because he struggled so much early in the year. And my response to that is he's probably not 100% because he'd be playing right now if he was 100%. But he's also probably like 90%. You could probably give him a cortisone shot in the ankle and he would go out there. How many times do we see that from QBs? My opinion is that if he had played earlier in the year, played well earlier in the year, he's probably out there playing in this Eagles game. But they clearly just, because he struggled, because they want to be careful with him, because he's 22 years old, and frankly, Wentz, even though he hasn't looked great, he's certainly played better than J.J. McCarthy played to start the year. They certainly don't want to put him back out there if he's not 100%. So that's really all my take on it is. Ultimately, I don't have the desire to have like hot takes on this. He's going to play again. That much is certain. Wentz isn't playing so well that he's like grabbed this job. Like Darnold, if this was last year and Darnold plays like he did last year, there's no way they're talking about going back to J.J. McCarthy last year. If McCarthy was healthy, which he wasn't, obviously. But, Wentz is not playing at that level. He's playing, if it's a spectrum where what Darnold did is 100%, what J.J. did was 0%, Wentz is probably between 25 and 33%. You know what I'm saying? So they're going to go back to J.J. McCarthy when he's healthy, and then we get to continue assessing him. I mean, look, he's 22 years old. He's played, 2 games? We don't need to have any conclusions on him, but it is clear, like, he's young. You clearly felt, he didn't have to really run a whole lot at Michigan with what they asked of him. He felt a little overwhelmed to start the year. And honestly, if it's a continuation of that when he comes back, they probably will go back to Carson Wentz to finish the season up to try and do a little playoff push here. But that also doesn't mean they're giving up on J.J. McCarthy. I think that's where it gets lost too, that like just because they play Wentz this year, it doesn't mean they're giving up on J.J. McCarthy. Again, 22 years old, 3 years of cheap control. I mean, what are they going to do? They're not going to extend Wentz if he's playing like this. He's playing fine, but he's not going to get a starting quarterback extension. Maybe they bring him back to compete with J.J. McCarthy. And as a backup, if J.J. plays really bad, that might make sense. But, they're not going to go out and spend the 12th pick in the draft on another first-round quarterback. That's not going to happen. Maybe they go and make a trade for, Kyler Murray or something. But, just because you kind of bench him through this year as another redshirt season, it does not mean you have to give up on him at all. So I kind of hate that narrative too. Anyway, it's probably an exhausted narrative at this point. But let's go ahead and move on to the London game. The Rams beating the snot out of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Just an impressive day from the Rams offense and Matthew Stafford especially, dude. Woo! Probably his best game of the year, in my opinion, especially with Puka Nacua out there. I just thought his tape was really good. No way around it. Just picking this defense apart. He found all the answers. It felt like there were so many moments where the offense might stall or the Jags were getting pressure or they weren't going to be able to find that big answer. And he just kept getting the ball out, made those NFL reads. It was just a really good veteran, impressive outing for Matthew Stafford. I love as well that they found some answers down in the red zone with the Davante Adams fade balls. This has been something I've talked about with the Rams extensively at this point, is that their short yardage and red zone efficiency has been brutal this year. It's a core reason for their losses. And, they just haven't had any answers in those areas. And a big part of it is Matthew Stafford's lack of mobility. So I think there's a couple answers that you could have found there. I didn't certainly think about throwing fades to Davante Adams. I don't love the goal line fade, but when you're talking about Matthew Stafford throwing to Davante Adams, yeah, that works. You can convert those certainly at a higher rate than they were finding before that with their other options. And then there's kind of gimmicky, gadget, trick play type stuff. I think it's smart that McVay would say, let's work on the fade as an option to Davante. But I've got some plays in mind that I'm not gonna show on tape quite yet when we're leading against the Jags in a Week 7 game. So I like the approach to try to solve some of their short yardage answers, because if they can be a better short yardage team, the Rams are no doubt Super Bowl contenders in my mind, especially when the defense continues to just check boxes, man. I mean, they had a heck of a day. 37 pressures, 7 sacks against this Jags offensive line. Just more of the same with Shula pressing the right buttons with stunts and blitzes. Braden Fisk looks healthy. You've got all these different pieces. This D-line is tenacious. So they showed up. And then this, I think, was also the best day that the Jags secondary has had. Especially, Quentin Lake has been awesome this year. He leads the league in pass breakups. And, it's an opportunity for me to take a draft victory lap. He was absolutely one of my guys. Thought he was a total steal when the Rams got him. And I love what they've done with him, putting him in the slot where his short area quickness. And this dude, dad played in the NFL a long time, grew up basically inside the Steelers locker room. And his football IQ is off the charts, but his quickness and ball skills are really good too. And, he gets a 4th down pass breakup defending Travis Hunter on a slant. That was just excellent coverage. He had 2 pass breakups in this game, but the sack as well. They blitz him off the edge. Again, Chris Shula pressing the right buttons at the right time, unblocked off the edge. So it's not like he had to do anything to get there, but how often do we see these DBs scream in and an athletic quarterback like Trevor Lawrence is able to spin out of it? And Quentin Lake, being the smart player that he is, I wish more players were aware of this. The second the quarterback sees you, they're almost always going to do that little spin move. And Quentin Lake was totally ready for it, broke down at the point of attack, and got him to the ground. How often do we see those DBs miss the sack, quarterback gets out of the pocket, and then they just throw the ball, replacing the blitz? He didn't let that happen. So really good day for Quentin Lake. But Darius Williams also had 2 pass breakups in this game. He had his best game of the year. And even Emmanuel Forbes held up decently well in this game. Not sure if that's sustainable or not, but complete day for the defense and a big day for the Rams. Convincing win. They get to 5-2, all of it. Like, they are absolutely one of the better teams in the league. Now, for the Jags, unfortunately, like, this is just exactly more of the same with everything I called out in that Jaguars video that I made. This was the inconsistencies with their passing game on absolute full display to the entire world as they played out in London. But it's all these different issues that we broke down that all come together that make you very frustrated watching this Jags passing attack. Number one, inaccurate Trevor Lawrence. I mean, it's been all but the Niners and Chiefs games. He was pretty accurate, but every other game, at any given moment, Trevor could sail an out route. He could leave a ball high over the middle of the field. He can dirt a throw. He can leave it behind his guy on a slant. He just makes these throws so much harder on these wide receivers. It was a bad day for Trevor in terms of accuracy. The drops showing back up. You have another Brian Thomas drop. You have, in a moment where it still felt like a comeback was possible for the Jags, Trevor makes a great throw to Washington on a crossing route. He's wide open, and he just drops it. The Jags have 23 drops on the season this year. They had 23 last season. Like, they are by far leading the NFL in drops. I mean, they're on pace for like 50-something drops. That has to be close to a record. They are on a historic run of hurting themselves by just not catching the damn football. And it's not just the drops, it's the lack of contested catch wins as well. The ball skills from these wide receivers have been a pure F. But then it's, on top of that, you get 3 or 4 kind of like miscue throws where Trevor throws at one spot and the receiver's looking in another spot. It just continually makes drives harder than they need to be, or end drives if that happens on a third down. And I think there was a fourth down where one of those throws happened where Dimey Brown wasn't where Trevor thought he was going to be. And then on top of that, the same thing we said, where it's like, why aren't they using Travis Hunter vertically? He gets all these short targets, but late in the game, they throw the deep cross to him, and he gets a huge touchdown out of it. The dude he's caught all 3 of his vertical targets for like 100 yards and a touchdown. Stop treating Brian Thomas as your number 1 wide receiver. He's not a number 1 right now until he can fix his hands. He has to be demoted to a lower leverage role in this passing game until he can earn that trust with the drops, because he gets and has been getting all of these big like third down looks. Of course, like naturally you want to go to your best wide receiver in those situations, but like you want to make him the first read if nothing else. And he's been getting open, but he's not catching the damn football. It's awful what we're seeing from him. So you have to demote him and make Travis Hunter a vertical read and the first read way more than they're doing right now. Good things happen when they target Travis Hunter deep. And then, like, the other thing that blew my mind in this game, beyond all those things compounding for a bad day of passing for the Jags, is why the hell did they not run the football? I mean, for those of you that watched my Jags video, the main thing we talked about with this offense was how well they're running the ball. I mean, they are top 10 in rushing EPA. ETN's been fantastic. Their run blocking's been good. And you're going against the Rams defense. They're doing a better job against the run this year, but this is clearly a defense that is lighter up front, that kills you in their pass rush. If you're going to beat the Rams, try to run the ball on them. At least try. If it doesn't work, then adjust. But from the very get-go, they just refused to run the football. And it's not like this game was out of hand. It's as early as like the second quarter where they just aren't doing it. It felt like ETN had 2 carries in the first half. And then eventually they gave him a few more carries, but they got away from it again in a lot of these like short yardage situations. That was unbelievable to me that Liam Cohen can't look at his team and say, our passing game is struggling, but we might have an advantage running the football in this game. I think they did. I think that their run game stacks up better than the Rams' run defense on paper to me. And they didn't even try. And that's an indictment on Liam Cohen. So they got to make they got to clean some stuff up. Like, that much is clear. They are so all over the place with this passing game. If any number of these things, whether it's the miscues or Trevor somehow becomes more accurate, which probably isn't happening at this stage in his career, or they clean up the drops, or they start to lean into Travis Hunter more. If any number of these things can tweak, you're going to see at least subtle improvements with the pass game. If they lean into their run game more, I still don't think the Jags are that far away from being a solid to good football team this year. And to be fair, I don't bring up refs very often in this podcast, but this was a game where I watched and I was like, look, the Rams would be winning this game regardless, but the refs made this a much bigger blowout than it really was. There was 3 major calls that impacted this game, none bigger than just a completely phantom block in the back penalty that took off a punt return touchdown, but you had a really soft, unnecessary roughness call that got the Rams an opportunity for one of their early touchdowns. And then there was a Jordan Lewis defensive pass interference on a 3rd down that extended a Rams drive that I thought was a super soft call. So I don't like bringing up the refs, but if we're assessing like how competitive the Jags are, they were also hurt by the refs in this game, which it can happen, right? Refs have bad days. It sucks, all that, but it is the reality of this game. It's not to take away from the Rams. The Rams would have won this game either way, but maybe not by 28 points. You know what I'm saying? And then also, like, the Jags were moving the ball in spots, but they just kept failing in these 4th down situations. And again, not running the football. And it's not just like, okay, it's 4th and 1, you might be able to pick it up on the ground. It's also like you can have successful 2nd down runs that keep you out of 3rd and 4th downs. But anyway, they had a lot of drives that just stalled on 4th downs. But I don't know, man. The Jags they've obviously been extremely frustrating to watch the last couple of weeks. I think it's going to look better moving forward, but like they got to make some of these. They got to clean some of the stuff with the passing game, run the ball more. I think they can be an okay team this year still. Not full panic mode, but it was ugly, no doubt about it. All right, let's move on to New England at Tennessee. New England wins this one big, 31-13. This game actually started interesting. Tennessee actually had a couple of drives to start that were kind of like, they fire the coach, Mike McCoy, got some plays happening in the passing game. You get the big Shamari DK throwback, play action, like deep vertical shot was a beautiful play from Cam Ward. Cam Ward made some throws in this game, dude. Like the arm talent on that play was super impressive, dude. Like, I'm not going to say he has the arm talent of Justin Herbert, but it reminded me a lot of some of those big Justin Herbert signature plays are exactly what this was, where you're doing a play action boot. It's often a heavy protection, and you're sending a speed receiver to the opposite deep cross. Like, you have to throw this ball like 60 something yards through the air to get it out there. And Cam Ward threw it on a laser. So like that throw was nice. He made multiple impressive throws over the middle of the field in this game. So early on, it was like, all right, Tennessee maybe a little bit of life after firing Callahan. And then, obviously as the game goes on, the Patriots start to pull ahead in this one. Cam Ward does have that fumble for the 2nd week in a row. As he's preparing himself to throw the ball, he just drops it and sacks himself and gives the ball to the other team. In this case, it was a touchdown for the Patriots that really blew this game out of the water at that point. So, like, yeah, you criticize him for it. He's got to stop doing it. But even as the game went on, like, I didn't think he was horrible in this game. Certainly better than he was the week before against the Raiders. It's just, for me with Cam Ward, it's like, just keep your head above water until this season ends. That's all you can really ask for Cam Ward is don't become broken. The Raiders game was a little bit of a fear that was happening. I think he was much better in this one against the Patriots for what it's worth. And like, you got to consider, man, like, their offensive line's horrible. They don't pass protect. They have no run game to speak of. And it's also tough. Like, he's out there. It's not just him that's a rookie. He's out there without Ridley in this game. He's with rookie wide receivers. There was like 3 or 4 incompletions in this game on just miscues. Like, they don't have it all figured out with the timing of this offense and all this stuff. So he's in an impossible situation to play extremely well. For me, it's like, don't make too many mistakes. which he really didn't in this game. It was just the fumble. Make some big throws, keep your head above water, and that's really all I have to say about Tennessee in this game is just assessing Cam Ward's performance, because it became clear as this game went on that it was all Patriots. I mean, dominant defensive performance. Love what they're getting there. Starting to feel, really like a Mike Vrabel defense. And Drake May is just playing so well. I think I said this in the power rankings, but if you did the alien test for the last 3 weeks, you take a ball-knowing alien, have him watch the last 3 weeks of the NFL, and you ask him, who's the best quarterback in the NFL? I think that alien answers Drake May. That's how well he's playing through the last 3 weeks. I mean, it's everything, dude. Like, the arm talent's amazing. The way he's extending plays is unbelievable. The way he's reading defenses, he breaks the completion percentage record in this game, so the accuracy has been fantastic. I mean, that's probably the biggest leap Drake May has made is he's cleaning up his footwork and playing in rhythm, and the accuracy was always going to be the biggest thing that you, other than just general processing and decision-making that any young quarterback you need to see improvements on, and he's making those improvements. But with Drake May, it's like, all right, he was a baseball player. He's hardly played quarterback. He kind of didn't do the whole 11 on 11, high-end quarterback coaching stuff that so many of these young QBs get at a young age. He didn't really get any of that stuff. So he was kind of putting it together on the fly. And that was still good enough to make him a top 3 draft pick. But obviously the Patriots, there's been a lot of talk about improving the mechanics, and it's working. It's somewhat comparable to what a young Josh Allen did, where he works on this stuff and gets the right coaching and look at it and fixes it. It's insane, man. So, he breaks Tom Brady's completion percentage record. He did get some help by some insane catches in this game. The Hooper touchdown was good placement by Drake May, but an unreal catch from Hooper to go up and over L'Jarius Sneed and holds on to the ball getting slammed into the ground like WWE style. And then there was a crossing route, probably the one inaccurate throw from Drake May all day. You have a crossing route from Pop Douglas, and May leaves it way behind him, and Douglas makes a super impressive catch in full stride. He just reaches back and plucks this thing. So I'm pretty sure if those two plays don't happen, he wouldn't break the completion record, but it's still, dude, he's playing so well. And then, again, these playmakers, they're stepping up. We already mentioned, Pop Douglas is playing well. That catch was nice. All the way down to, Austin Hooper making red zone catches. He's having a nice year. He can still play, man. What they do in 12 personnel works. Keyshawn Boutte, as a number 2 wide receiver, continues to break through as just a good, steady option. He had another big game, winning those kind of chemistry balls as that number 2 in this offense. And you also, again, Drake May's scrambling killed Tennessee in this game. He's just playing so lights out. They actually got their run game going. New England did. That was good to see. And it's not like Tennessee is this horrible run defense. I wouldn't say they're a great one. Now with Jeffrey Simmons leaving this game, that definitely changes things. But they leaned into Ramondre Stevenson, who's clearly their best running back right now. As long as he's not fumbling, he's a good running back, and he had some really good runs in this game. TreVeyon Henderson got just 2 touches in this game. Not to be the annoying guy that takes victory laps in my draft takes too early, but when you draft a running back that early and he looks this bad, looking like my pushback on that draft pick and pointing out how bad his vision was is aging well at this point in time. But yeah, the Patriots keep making statements. This was against Tennessee, but it was a blowout win against Tennessee where everything was really clicking full cylinder for them. So great to see that for New England as we continue to kind of assess if they're really going to, they're obviously a playoff contending team, but man, they seem to keep getting better in areas. It's a Mike Vrabel coach team. The quarterback is playing as good as anybody in the league right now. I mean, this could get extremely real, winning the AFC East real, being a Super Bowl contender real. I'm not quite there yet. We're still kind of learning just where this team is at, but Jesus, dude, they got a lot going on. All right, let's go to the Sunday Night Football game, the Niners-Falcons game. Niners win this one 20-10. Pretty convincing game from start to finish, man. Just a good team effort in a major bounce back week for the Niners. Whereas heading into this game, certainly for myself and I think most people, pretty doom and gloom. Fred Warner gets injured last week. They lost to the Bucs. Kind of felt like it was going to be the straw that breaks the camel's back. But all of a sudden, the Niners creating some intrigue in this game. And for me, it's like it all starts with the defense. They obviously hold Atlanta to 10 points in this game, and Michael Penix was not good in this game. I'm going to talk about that, but still a really impressive just team outing and another huge Robert Saleh statement game in primetime. I mean, this happened when they beat the Rams. Saleh had a brilliantly coached game with blitzes and came out with that team ready to go in a short week. Here again, I mean, like, total team effort. They are down to countless backups, and they still have an outstanding day of defense. They do a good enough job to slow down Bijan Robinson and make Michael Penix uncomfortable in this game. It was a total team effort. It was great coaching, but there were a few individuals that stood out with this Niners team. And the number one is Bryce Huff, who, I mean, he has to be their best pass rusher now with Fred Warner, with Bosa going down. And, I mean, he's delivering as, like, he's producing as, I'm not going to say like a high-end number one or anything, but he's giving them enough to do what they need to do in their pass defense. And what a signing that was to go get him from Philly, reuniting him with Saleh. I am such a big Bryce Huff fan. Fun fact, he's the only NFL player that follows me. I don't think he spends a whole lot of time on Twitter, but he followed me back when he was coming out of Memphis. He was an undrafted player, but I was tweeting about, like, what the hell happened? How is Bryce Huff not a combine invite? Like, he is clearly a top 10 edge rusher in this draft class, blah, blah, blah. Huff followed me. We had some fun talk in the DMs, but like, dude, he is such a fun player to watch is what I'm saying. And he's critical for this defense to get enough from them. And he had a great night. And then you have Chase Lucas, another fun prospect. Remember him coming out. He goes 7th round, I think, to Detroit, but they've got him playing in the slot. He gets a huge, 4th down pass breakup. He's flying around. Tatum Bethune steps up in Fred Warner's shoes at linebacker, and another D lineman, Sam Ekwinonu. He's flashed for me in the past. He's this kind of short, stout, clunky defensive end that just brings a lot of energy and is a brick shit house, and he can do some stuff with that combination. So, like, they're getting the absolute most out of this defense. I think Robert Saleh, there's some, they have an award for assistant coach of the year, and I think that has to go to Robert Saleh right now, right? Yeah, I mean, like, Shane Steichen is the offensive coordinator and the head coach, but he can't win the assistant coach of the year, obviously. Mike McDonald, same deal, but for the defense. I think other than those two guys, there's maybe not another guy doing a better job scheming up what they're supposed to do. Maybe in Detroit with Morton as the offensive coordinator, but just so blown away. The Robert Saleh edition has been everything you could have prayed for. And it's kind of annoying for fans of all the other NFC teams because it kind of feels like this could settle in as, you know, a long-term thing where he's locked in as the DC. It might reach a point where he gets a second go as a head coach because it was the Jets, and it's not like he didn't do an amazing job, obviously, but there was some success there with that Jets team in moments. But anyway, a huge hire to get him. But for the Niners offense, this was really all about their run game. Christian McCaffrey had the best game he's had in a long time, a lot of power and quickness. He's been good this year, but he hasn't looked like peak Christian McCaffrey, and I still don't know that, like, the breakaway speed is necessarily in there anymore, but he looked shiftier than he's looked since his recent injury woes. That's great to see. And getting George Kittle back, too, I don't think it's a coincidence that McCaffrey had such a crazy good night, and even Robinson had some good runs here, too, but Kittle was unused in the passing game, but he had a very good PFF run blocking grade. I'm not going to sit here and act like I took the time to grind all of George Kittle's run blocking tape, but I've certainly seen it plenty of times where you can tell the difference having him as an extension of the offensive line, what it makes. And I can only imagine if I were to visit the tape, there would be plenty of those moments, as I've seen countless times before. So I think getting him back as a blocker was huge. It was funny. My wife, Anna, was complaining because she has Christian McCaffrey and George Kittle on her fantasy team. And she was at a 24-hour shift at the hospital when this game was going on. And she texted me. She was like, Kittle, WTF. And I was like, yeah, but look at Christian McCaffrey. Like, he's got 35 fantasy points. And, Kittle isn't getting targeted because they're running the ball, but they're also running the ball because of Kittle. So it's like, it's going hand in hand for you. I think you're doing just fine there. And guess what? She won her game. But let's talk about Atlanta. Like I said, Michael Penix was bad in this game. And I tweeted this out, and I want to talk about it a little bit. Michael Penix has a lot of Trevor Lawrence in him, where you see him throw the football, how pretty the ball looks, the velocity, some of the high-end plays that he can make, some of the unbelievable throws. And it leaves you impressed by Michael Penix and Trevor Lawrence many times. But there's just so many missing pieces. It's like the puzzle is almost fully put together, but there's some scattered spots with a guy like Michael Penix that it's just like it doesn't all come together. And that's how I've always kind of felt about Trevor Lawrence, where it's a little bit of accuracy there, it's a little processing and decision-making there, it's a little pocket presence here. And that's the thing with Michael Penix. In this game, it was just a lot of different criticisms. I think the processing was slow against this Robert Saleh defense. I think the accuracy was all over the map in this game, and that's been an issue for Michael Penix in a lot of the games where he has had his struggles. And the inability for him to navigate the pocket and know when and how to use his feet, brutal in this game. So, I mean, we're still only, 11 starts into his career? I'm not making any closing statements on Michael Penix, but Atlanta's not going to be able to go where they want to go if this is anything close to what Michael Penix is. And I don't need to go any further down that path. He's got to play better. He has played better in other games, but this was tough. And that really held everything back for the offense and was the main reason why they only scored 10 points in this game. But defensively, they weren't horrible. I don't need to pound on this defense, but clearly I think the Niners exploited what has already been a weakness for Atlanta, but the Niners really leaned into it, and their run defense can be had. And this is another parallel of Raheem Morris building this defense like the Rams do. Undersized unit. They build their pass rush around blitzes and twists in games. The coverages that they've called is nearly identical to what Raheem ran with the Rams and with Shula, and that's continued this year. So that's really what I pushed back in the offseason. I've had to apologize. Raheem Morris is doing an excellent job, but when people were like, oh, Lake is the DC, not Raheem Morris, and I'm like, well, explain why Raheem is doing everything he did with the Rams and applying it to this Falcons defense. That's obviously more. They're building this defense in Morris's image. They're just asking the DC to run it, and that's been the case. Now, I do think that Jeff Ulbricht's doing a great job running this defense, and they didn't lose this game because of their defense, but their run defense did struggle. And that's the trade-off with the way that they build this front, that the Falcons have been blowing teams away with their pass defense. They're still a highly ranking pass defense unit, and it's not like the Niners threw the ball over the yard in this game, but they did run all over them. The Falcons fall to 22nd in the league in run defense DVOA, so we're talking about a bottom 10 run defense. And you look at their front, and you understand how that happens, right? You have Zach Harrison is their starting defensive end in a 3-4 base type of defense. He's 6'5", 270 pounds. He's Rashawn Gary's size. Ruka Rororo has been one of their premium interior defensive tackles. He's 6'4", 295. Sam Roberts is their nose tackle that got 20 snaps in this game. He's 6'5", 300 pounds. That's very thin. Taquan Graham is only 6'3", 300. Brandon Dorless plays for them. He's 6'3", 295. Their biggest defensive tackle is David Onyemata, who's 6'4", 310, which is like an average size for a DT. And their edge rushers are super light, right? They went out and got James Pierce Jr., who's good as a pass rusher, but you knew he was going to struggle as a run defender based on his college tape and his size profile. Jalen Walker, Leonard Floyd, these aren't big thumping edge rushers. So the Niners did expose how you can go about attacking this Falcons defense. And this game overall was just a huge bummer for the Falcons and Falcons fans after you win that Bills game and like you're feeling on top of the world, especially though when it's your quarterback really holding you back. You want to be feeling better about how he's playing. And I didn't think Penix was great in that Bills game either. It was more about Bijan running all over the Bills. But yeah, it's about as bad of a week as anybody had, I think, was the Falcons this week against the Niners. All right, let's go to the Carolina Panthers at the New York Jets. The Panthers hold on in a defensive slugfest, 13-16. I want to start with the Panthers defense, which was definitely the best storyline from this game in a positive light, at least for Carolina. They're really making strides on this side of the ball. It's especially impressive when you know they still have some talent gaps. They had a good offseason. They did everything they could as they've continued to try to put pieces around Bryce. But you look at what they were last year, one of the worst defenses in NFL history, frankly. And for them now, they have had some big defensive outings. They shut out the Falcons. They win this game on the heels of their defense, 13-6. They've made enough stops against Dallas. I mean, at this point, holding Dallas to 27 points is an impressive outing, which is, that's what they did last week. So, Ejiro Evero at the top of all this continues to just earn credit. I think he is, now that he has pieces to work with, I think he's slowly building back up that head coach candidate case. I think someday we'll get there. But it's not just Evero. Some of these players are really stepping up. And the first one in this game was J.C. Horn. The Jets are trying to lead a comeback in this game. They had opportunities to do so. But J.C. Horn said, it's not going to happen today. J.C. Horn had the best day of his career. He's had a great season, but this was a statement game from Horn. Like, he's always been a very good player. He's had some injury concerns, but for me at least, I've had a hard time considering him a lock top 10 corner because of sample size, frankly. But also having performances like this is going to help that. So like, he is a bona fide top 10 corner, and he's like pushing up into that top 5 at this point with a performance like this. 2 picks in this game to shut the door, slam the door shut on the Jets. Tyrod takes a deep shot, and J.C. Horn on the trail. It was, kind of zone coverage, I believe, and the receiver was trying to split the difference. I'm envisioning, I didn't watch the all-22 on it, but I'm envisioning that it was cover 3. They ran it up the seam. The safety's converging. J.C. Horn is beelining it back to the middle of the field as no one entered his outside third. And Tyrod leaves it a little bit short. If he has a little bit more on the ball or gets it out a little bit more in front, maybe the wide receiver can make a play. But J.C. Horn makes a beeline for this ball, plucks it with one hand, and kills that drive. Very impressive play. And then, again, the Jets get the ball back in a one-score game. Late in this game, Tyrod decides to take a vertical shot to God knows what wide receivers he was trying to throw to in this game with Wilson out. But perfect press coverage technique from J.C. Horn on the outside. Bodies the receiver down the field, stays right in his hip pocket, and then just as the receiver looks for the ball, J.C. Horn gets his head around, boxes out the wide receiver. Just literally, this play should be played in high school DB camps, like textbook type of stuff. So J.C. Horn was incredible. The run defense now 3 straight good weeks. It's a total team effort, but like Derek Brown has been an absolute monster. It's so clear how much they missed him. These linebackers are playing well. And yeah, things are just coming together for this Panthers defense, which it's just going to take so much pressure off the offense and allow them to win games like this where the offense can run into a defense playing well and can have their hiccups, right? Like we're still going through the Bryce Young of it all. I don't even really feel like getting into. It feels like every week we need to make a proclamation on whether Bryce Young is the future or not. They struggled early in this game. They struggled to finish drives. They weren't running the ball. The Jets, took that away from the Panthers. And then you also have Sauce going on T-Mac. So when you're taking away the Panthers' run game and you have a corner that's uniquely equipped to take away T-Mac, you're gonna end up putting some pressure on this Panthers offense. And Bryce really had one drive in this game where he makes a couple of nice plays to get the one critical touchdown in this game, but Bryce leaves after 3 quarters in this game. Andy Dalton comes in, and it really felt kind of like the Broncos game where they weren't really trying too hard to move the ball, knowing that their defense was going to make the plays. Once Andy Dalton came in, with the backup in, they were just trying to get this game down to 0 seconds left on the clock. So there wasn't as much to say on the Panthers offense. I think it was, a combination of their passing game is still a little bit disjointed. Bryce is clearly still not a superstar. I don't think Bryce was horrible in this game. Like I said, the Jets did a good job to make some of these drives hard on them. The one positive on the Panthers offense that I did write down, though, is Xavier Legette continues to play well. He gets the chemistry touchdown in the Bryce Young scramble touchdown where he rolls left, and it's a muddy scene, and you can clearly tell Bryce is waiting for someone to break back towards the middle of the field because everything was rolling left with him to the sideline. And Xavier Legette, who has not been complimented for all of the nuanced aspects of the wide receiver position, he's on the same page. He breaks inside the second he does. Bryce Young, really, obviously his best play of the day. He threads it through kind of like a wanted bullet shot, bends it through the defense and gets the touchdown. But good play there from Legette, and to not drop that ball through the traffic was nice. Not that he was getting hit while he did, but to track it through the traffic, nice hands catch. And then he made a couple of nice plays with Dalton in there. He has a nice catch over the middle of the field where he has to kind of elevate for it, in the middle of zone defense. And then he seals the game on the kind of vintage Legette, or at least what you envision for him with this Panthers team, just lining up outside, running a go ball against Azariah Thomas. And he does a nice job, does that kind of that push off that every good receiver in the NFL does in that situation that typically does not get called for offensive pass interference. I saw some Jets fans complaining about it, but that just is never going to get called, man. It's not. Watch all of Mike Evans' career. But that's exactly what you want Legette to do. Play physical through hand fighting, get the extension, and then complete the catch for what was the final nail in the Jets' coffin. Because that was a third down. If they don't get that, the Jets get yet another chance to try and lead a comeback. So Xavier Legette continues to play well. When I did my wide receiver tier maker last week, I put him in the prospects I don't believe in category, but he was at the very top of that tier. Definitely got to bump him up to at least the prospects I do believe in category. He is playing much better the last couple weeks, and that's big. He was a first-round pick for them last year. And I like that if he can be a nice number 2 option, he doesn't have to be the most complete, perfect player. T-Mac's going to be their number 1. Coker comes back this week. He hardly played. But I really like that trio for them. And with Jimmy Horn, too, kind of as this, what they're doing with him, a lot of kind of quick-hitting gadget plays. Kind of like their version of Pop Douglas. But yeah, big win for the Panthers. They get to a winning record for the first time in God knows how long, 3 in a row. Not a pretty win, but look, the Panthers will take any win they can get. Ask any Panthers fan. That this team is the definition of a win is a win. These have come few and far between, even against bad teams like the Jets. And it's just good that they're kind of more consistently winning these games. I still, to say I was impressed by the Panthers, they're doing some good stuff. But I thought they would win this game a little bit more convincingly than they did. I think some of the offensive issues, they're there, is what I'm saying. So want to see them continue to get better. For example, they play the Bills and the Packers these next 2 weeks. Very curious to see what those 2 games look like for them. But let's go to the Jets side of things. Honestly, I'm not going to spend too much time on Justin Fields. We've gone down that path a million times. We've gone down that path since he was a Chicago Bear, right? Like, it's over. He gets benched for Tyrod. He's getting buried by the owner. It's done. I will say, like, I still think Justin Fields could have a great career as a running back or Taysom Hill, something like that, if he wanted to be an impactful NFL player. Otherwise, he can keep bouncing around and have I can't even say a Tyrod Taylor-esque career, because Tyrod Taylor's like a good backup quarterback. But he can bounce around and have a Drew Lock-esque career and keep getting opportunities because of his physical talent. But that's just up to Fields and what he wants to do. But I think if you want to actually help a team win football games, the only way Fields is going to do that at this point is going to be as a position player, putting his athleticism to work. But and the other thing, like, okay, I said I wasn't going to go down the Fields path, but the thing with Fields is, like, he clearly can't, like, process things. Justin can't see the fields. But he's always, like, a big reason he does get all these opportunities beyond the physical ability is he is well known for, like, his work ethic is insane. Like, he is a first one in, last one out. He, like, takes great care of his body, all this stuff. That should apply well to, like, being a running back or a receiver or a tight end or whatever it might be. So I don't know. If I'm Fields' agent, I'm at least going to suggest it. I don't know. But obviously the Jets offense is a wreck right now. They end up going to Tyrod, and the operation was more efficient. You can certainly feel the difference in pocket presence too from Tyrod to Fields, where when he does get in trouble, he knows where to go with the ball and where to move in the pocket much better than Fields. And just more confident, like, pushing the ball downfield to actually covered wide receivers. Fields needs to see a guy wide open before he pulls the trigger. Tyrod's at least going to give his guy a chance. Now, in this game, you saw the bad end of variance there with the crazy plays that J.C. Horn made, and without any competent wide receiver out there. I mean, without Garrett Wilson out there, that hurt. I think with a Garrett Wilson offense, having Tyrod out there will work much better. So the ball moved a little bit better when Tyrod came in, but, like, they're a mess right now offensively between the QB play and the wide receiver play. Inevitably, people are going to start blaming the play calling. I don't know what you're supposed to call. They couldn't really run the ball in this game either. It is, though, good to see the Jets defense playing well. That is supposed to be the point with Aaron Glenn, and this is now back-to-back weeks. They have held the opponent to 13 points, right? Exactly. That's good defense, dude. And these aren't horrible offenses with the Panthers and the Broncos. I would say those are average to maybe slightly below average NFL offenses. But the secondary is actually playing really well, which, like, that's Aaron Glenn's thing. So he's got these guys playing well. Sauce had a great game in this one going against T-Mac. Brandon Stevens is actually playing better. He had a rough start, but I will give credit where credit's due. He's playing much better. And then, like, we saw some Azariah Thomas this week. He had one pass breakup, playing some physical coverage down the field, and then he did give up the eventual dagger, but it's fun to see him out there. Even if I was lower on him in the draft, he's still a very fun player. I enjoy those physical corners. My take was just like, I don't know if you can trust a corner with his vertical speed. We saw that hurt him on the Leggett catch, but I still am, like, fascinated to see if it's going to work. Just as, like, an overall, I think you guys know, like, I do not overrate 40 time pretty much across the board, but I do think at corner we have historically seen a line, especially with press man style corners. And I'm really just, like, curious to see where that goes. I don't care if I'm right or wrong, but it's fun to see him out there. He's a fun prospect. Like, his technique and his length and his physicality is very good. I understand why Aaron Glenn likes him. So I'm excited to see more of him. He played 25 snaps in this game. Again, up and down, but he's only played 40 snaps on the season. So, 17 snaps before this game. He gets 25 in this game. So he gets out there. And then Quinnen Williams was a monster up front. He's playing like you hope Quinnen Williams to play again this year after last year he just didn't for some reason. And the run defense, they're playing really good team run defense. The linebackers flying around, that gap discipline, that Detroit brand of football is making its way into this Jets defense. So that's great. And eventually the Jets are going to win a game, I think, because at least on one side of the ball, they're playing better. But let's go to the Saints-Bears game. The Bears win this one 26-14. And talk about defenses shaping up. I think that was the story in this game, was the Bears defense that you go back to week 3, it was full-scale panic. Like, this is going to be the worst defense in the league. You know, people starting to blame Dennis Allen 2 games into his career. Jalen Johnson, oh no, he's out for the year, although maybe he might come back if they're in it at the end. Something to keep an eye on as the Bears are playing better here. But yeah, Dennis Allen deserves a ton of credit. Just throw him on the list of all these defensive coordinators right behind who we just talked about with Aaron Glenn and the Jets. Defensive coordinators, even the best of them, they're going to need some time to like get familiar with their players, know their strengths and weaknesses, understand what coverage structures, how you should blitz, where you should blitz from, how to line guys up, all this stuff. It can take some time. And with Dennis Allen, he is getting the absolute most out of this Bears defense right now that has a lot of holes on it, but their defensive line is playing well. And just their overall pass rush is producing. I think you're getting, number one, like Montez Sweat and Gervon Dexter are playing like a very capable pass rushing duo. It's not an ideal setup. You still want some more talent on that D-line, but they're getting enough from those guys, paired with Dennis Allen that is really bringing the heat. I mean, some of the sim pressure, phantom pressure, all that stuff where he's showing a blitz one way, coming from the other direction. You end up rushing 4, but you get a guy unblocked. Like, you're getting that stuff from Dennis Allen, and he's gotten this secondary to settle down. Jaquan Brisker is playing great, by the way. Tyreek Stevenson has settled in and is playing well. They've got Kyler Gordon back in the lineup, so they're getting some contributors. Even not Jaquan Brisker. I just said that, but Kevin Byard. He had a really rough start to the season. He has not had those bad plays on the back end, and he's been making some more plays. He had a couple picks against Geno, right, in that Raiders game. So they get more from the DBs. Nashawn Wright as well. So it's really everybody playing better. Nashawn Wright, I don't know that he's the long-term answer or anything like that. He's basically been bad all season for the most part. He made a play in the Vikings game, right, week 1. But he had a pick and a pass breakup. He allows just 2 receptions on 6 targets for 18 yards. He was a 3rd-round pick a few years ago, so like maybe there's enough there if he can play more consistently, because the flashes have obviously been there. But yeah, the defense is playing really well. Now, it is worth noting they are on a crazy rate of forcing turnovers. And in this one, I think Spencer Rattler played like crap. I think the Bears did a little bit to force him to play like crap, and a lot of it was just Spencer Rattler shooting himself in the foot. And I'm not saying this to take anything away. Speaking of taking aways, I'm not saying this to detract from what the Bears are doing. Like I said, they have shapen up on defense, but this is the most guaranteed thing in the sport of football. Anybody that's paid close attention know that turnovers are fluky. They are often very predicated on the opponent making mistakes, combined with you taking advantage of those mistakes. Some turnovers are forced, and there have been some forced turnovers for the Bears. But, like, the reality is, when you lead the league in turnovers, and you have way more than everybody else, they have, like, 2.5 a game right now. It's going to come back to earth. It's just going to happen. I don't know what else to say to Bears fans. I would bet my mortgage that the Bears' turnovers per game come down over the next half of the season. So when that inevitably happens, it's good that the defense is playing better down to down, but I also think the offense is going to have to continue to get better. They're doing some good stuff. Like, Caleb Williams is going to be the big talking point, obviously. I think he's playing okay, but inconsistent. Every Bears game, whether it's this week, the Raiders game, the Commanders game, my biggest takeaway from him in this offense is I still want to see more. And again, he made some throws in this game. There was a good play action boots. He had one tremendous play extension play where it was dead to rights, and he flips it to DeAndre Swift, and he gets like 40 yards out of it. Crazy good play. He's, with the defense, getting them turnovers, and with the run game playing as well as it has, they've gotten just enough throws from Caleb to get by, especially in the Commanders and Raiders game. This one was more of an impressive overall team effort to win by 12 points. But look, Caleb Williams in this game, there's still just very little structure throws. Like, there is a lot of that to him where he is still a thrower, not a passer. A thrower being someone that kind of needs to see the receiver open before he throws it. A passer being someone that understands how to throw with anticipation and throw with leverage against tight coverage and, complete challenging NFL windows. He's not doing that yet. And it's leading to him holding the ball forever. He held the ball for 3.53 seconds, time to throw average in this game. That's crazy high. And that increased his time to throw on the season up to 3.23, which leads the league in the NFL. He's holding the ball way too long. He's running around trying to make stuff happen with very little yields as well. There's so many times where he's drawing lines in the sand like all over the field as he's running around trying to avoid sacks, and then it's a 1-yard scramble or it's a throw out of bounds. He also had a really bad interception early in this game that a better team is going to make him pay for. So I want to see more consistency from the passing game. I want to see him trust the structure of the offense, make more of those structure throws. There's a couple in there, but you need a lot more. Really, it was the run game being good again, which was the offense. That's where the offense got enough. And look, DeAndre Swift is running his ass off. He deserves credit. And I also think Ben Johnson doing a great job at not forcing DeAndre Swift to run the types of runs that he's not good at. You don't want DeAndre Swift running between the tackles, running a bunch of inside zone. And they will inevitably have to run some inside zone with him, though they're getting like Kyle Monungai going a little bit with some of those runs. But, their inside zone run game hasn't been insane. It's been the outside zone and their toss pull plays that have been insane. So I looked this up. Shout out Sumer Brain, which if you football fanatics haven't checked out Sumer Brain yet, you can ask it any sort of stat question and it will give you some really impressive answers. But shout out Sumer Sports. They do really good work out there, by the way. But the Bears, the last 2 weeks, have run 29 plays of outside zone and toss plays. And they have 227 yards on those 29 plays. So just almost exclusively getting DeAndre Swift out into space on the move, where we know he is an electric player in space. That's not DeAndre Swift's problem, right? It's between the tackles. So Ben Johnson doing a good job just not forcing him to do what he's not good at. And that's what great coaches do. So it's a good week for the Bears, taking care of a much inferior team. This upcoming week at Baltimore, assuming Lamar Jackson goes, going to be a much bigger test for the Bears, who open as 6.5-point underdogs in that game, by the way. Now, for the Saints, Rattler had a rough day, dude. You don't need to bag on him. He's played much better than you expected he would this season. So you want to see him get back to doing that, and then we can continue to evaluate him and hopefully just burn the tape on this one. But 6 turnover-worthy plays, including 3 interceptable passes within 4 plays. I tweeted out that sequence. It can't happen, man. He's going to lose this job if he plays anything close to that, with kind of the noise with Tyler Shook there as a second-round pick. I continue to be fascinated to see how he plays and how that quarterback situation pans out. But beyond that, as with any Saints game, it's basically just watching the younger players and seeing who might be establishing themselves as, part of this core. I still think this wasn't their most competitive outing, but it still wasn't like they didn't get slaughtered necessarily. I still think it's important for them to just lose close games and don't lose the locker room and feel good about kind of building this into next year. So, continuation of all that. But Quincy Riley had a pick in this game. The Caleb interception, obviously, broke on an out route. And I do like Quincy. It's tough because I liked Quincy Riley as an off-zone corner, really instinctive ball skills as an undersized corner. A lot of like that Darius Williams type analysis on him. The problem is like he has to be in an off-zone kind of Brandon Staley type of scheme to have success, and this pick was exactly that, where he makes a break on an out route and gets the pick. So that's all adding up. The problem is I don't love Brandon Staley being the long-term defensive coordinator. So, it's kind of goes against each other in terms of what I like and what I don't like with that, but beyond that, Kendre Miller tore his ACL, which is a bummer. I hadn't mentioned him yet, but he was playing really well. He actually was leading the league in missed tackle forced rate a couple weeks ago. I don't know if he had sustained that or not. Bijan may have passed him up, but he was doing a good job when they were giving him opportunities, and it just sucks to see a young player tear his ACL like that. But I will say I'm excited to see more Devin Neal, who I loved coming out of Kansas, and they might potentially find something there. I talked about that in the Saints deep dive, where as the season goes on, and it was more like I wasn't a huge Kendre Miller guy, so I saw Devin Neal maybe taking his job more so, and then maybe Kamara getting faded out a little bit more with age, but he was a guy I talked about in that Saints deep dive as like a really fun player that you're hoping can maybe walk away as a core piece. If nothing else, as like a Tyler Algier-esque player. I think that was even my pro comp on Devin Neal as a really good RB2 for them. But we should get to see more Devin Neal moving forward. So I'm excited for that at least. Even if it sadly comes at the expense of Kendre Miller. Big bummer. But let's go to the last good game of the week, or at least entertaining game, the Colts-Chargers. The Colts dominate 38-24. Just an unbelievable day of offense. Not what we're used to seeing from this Chargers defense, that even in their bad outings, it feels like they're able to kind of limit big plays and tackle well and keep things within reason. Not in this one. This was all Colts from the very get-go. They get the jump on this defense, and it is crazy with the Colts. It's putting me in a tough spot because I don't want to pretend like it, I don't want it to come off like I'm not acknowledging what's happening, and like not talk about it every week. But it's kind of boring to just say the same thing every week with them. Their consistent efficiency and they're good every week for the same exact reason. And it's so impressive, but it's like, what do you want me to do? Just copy and paste and repeat the same things I said every week? I mean, I guess what was different this week was they even did it without Josh Downs, who's been so good the last 2 weeks. So it's a testament to just how many players they've had. Granted, for a while they didn't have Alec Pierce. They had Josh Downs. Now they don't have Josh Downs, but they have Alec Pierce. So it's kind of a flip there. But yeah, dude, the way that they distribute the ball, get all these guys going, Tyler Warren, Josh Downs when he's been out there, Alec Pierce, Michael Pittman, it's super impressive. Jonathan Taylor, it's so easy to just crown Bijan as the best RB because of what he's doing. Jonathan Taylor is doing everything in his power to push back on that. I mean, he has looked like, because he was the best running back in the league in 2001. But he's been banged up. The Colts haven't been as good. It's been a little bit of everything. He's fallen away. Dude, this is prime Jonathan Taylor. The burst, the vision, the ability to run with patience when he needs to, but to turn it on and accelerate to the corner. The dude's insane. I can't say enough about how good he looks. The offensive line is as good as it's ever been here in Indianapolis. Great call by them to move on from Ryan Kelly, who continues to struggle to stay healthy in Minnesota. Will Fries. was good for them, but they're not missing him. Like Mackin Calvez is playing just as good, if not better there. Tanner Bortolini's been very fun. Quentin Nelson has been back to all pro. Quentin Nelson, he's been a beast. These tackles have been great. I mean, on top of all this, you've got Shane Steichen he is just on an all-time run of play calling. It's almost like he knows what the defense is calling. He's calling such a good game. Every single play, it feels like he knows what needs to be called. And it's just this perfect balance of the run game, the schemed up passing game, and then also just trusting Daniel Jones as a drop back passer at times too. It's kind of like the opposite of what we're seeing at times with Sean Payton in Denver, where it's like he doesn't want to trust the quarterback. Well, Shane Steichen's willing to trust Daniel Jones to make the reads and make the tough throws when they need to be made. And he's calling up the right schemes to beat these coverages. And obviously Daniel Jones continues to just play super well. It's exactly what we've said about them the last 6 weeks. So they did it again here against the Chargers. Now, for the Chargers, I do think they're going to bounce back. Like, there were some moments early in this game where you could feel the tackle problems. Short week here, but hopefully Joe Alt is back. And Khalil Mack was technically back in this game, but he only played 12 snaps. Those are two of their best players, right? So getting them back, Herbert's still playing great. The wide receivers are playing great. Like, I think the Chargers will bounce back as long as they aren't getting lit up defensively like this, right? This was an uncharacteristic day for the defense. Like I said, they have shown that even on their bad days, they do a good job as a unit. I still trust Jesse Minter to settle this thing down. This was by far the worst defensive performance in the Jesse Minter era. So like they'll have better days of defense ahead, and the offense is going to be just fine. So like I think the Chargers can straighten this thing out, but I do want to comment on the Alohi Gilman trade, because Chargers fans were not happy with me when I said I don't really like this for the Chargers. And always been fine. He had 2 pressures in this game. Last week he had 2 pressures, which were, it was one good pressure and then a cleanup sack on a play action boot that got registered as a pressure, but it wasn't a pass rush win. He's giving you his 2 pressures a game. Like Owe, I don't think is like fixing their D-line problems, right? And what I said when they made that trade was I'm worried that they're going to create a new issue without actually fixing the other issue that they're trying to fix. Like the saying is you fixed one issue and created a new one. I was worried that it was actually going to be worse than that they weren't really going to fix their D-line issues, but we're going to create a new one with their safety room. And I think in this game you felt that. I mean, look, the last 2 weeks, Derwin James has had to play a lot more deep safety, which that was the biggest thing I said on this podcast when they traded away Gilman, was that's fine. What I don't want that to mean is that they change the scheme and take Derwin out of the slot where he has played some of the best ball he has in 5 years. It goes all the way back to the Kyle Hamilton, Nicky Manwari conversation. That is where Derwin needs to be. And in this game, Derwin James played 18 deep safety snaps. He had played 12 deep safety snaps in the 5 games before the Alohi Gilman trade. And this game was probably Derwin James' worst game in the Jesse Minter era. Bad in coverage, targeted 5 times, 4 receptions for 54 yards. And he missed, he was not involved in the run defense that obviously struggled. He missed the Jonathan Taylor, one of Jonathan Taylor's touchdowns. He rotates into a single high and takes a bad angle, whiffs on the tackle on Jonathan Taylor. And I get it's Jonathan Taylor, but you're Derwin James. He's just not as good out in space. You want him down in the box where he can make that impact. And I don't like any of that. Don't break don't fix what isn't broken, right? And that was my fear, was that was what's going to happen when they traded Gilman. And it's exactly what we've seen. So we'll see if they can make an adjustment back, keep him down in the box. But it's not just that. It's a domino effect. So, number one, with Gilman leaving, you've also added more opportunities for Tony Jefferson to play. And Tony Jefferson's made some plays as like a rotational backup, but in a full-time role, he has not looked good. He looked slow out there. He was nowhere to be found as the Colts were spraying the ball, not spraying, but moving the ball all over the field, through the air, through the ground. He did not play well in this game. There's no way around it. So he's had to take a full-time starting role. And then with Derwin not playing in those 3 safety packages as much, they have moved him back, played less 3 safety, and taken Tarheeb Still, and that's flipped. So before the Alohi Gilman trade, Tarheeb Still played 2/3 of his snaps as an outside corner, and he was great out there. Would occasionally step into the slot when Derwin wasn't their slot corner, but now he has played 2/3 of his snaps as a slot corner, and he missed a bunch of tackles from the slot on early down work that he's not used to playing. So it has had a domino effect, and it has made the floor of this defense much worse, which is exactly what I said when they traded away Gilman. It's like, okay, he's not a splashy high-end coverage player, but he sets the communication. He allows you to stay in those 3 safety packages that have been the core thing that has worked for them, and he tackles. It's broken everything, at least in this game. So I'm just saying, they got to get that. They got to get that cleaned up. And I know that, like Elijah Molden is out, so that's a factor. I'll give them that. Hopefully, that at least fixes the Tony Jefferson problem, where, you know, because they're playing. Okay, sorry, we're going on a little bit of a tangent here, but I think it's important. So, what they like to do is basically always play 3 safety. I think they played 3 safety defense like 87% of the time last year. So 3 safeties have been considered starters on their defense. So now that they trade away Gilman, that came down. They played that second safety about 50% of the time in this game instead of all the time. And they played, the other guy that was playing was Mickens, the rookie out of Clemson, who I think looks better than Tony Jefferson at least. So what I'm trying to say is hopefully Molden can come back and you can move Derwin back into the slot, keep Still on the outside, and play Mickens and Molden as the safety duo. That's what they should do, in my opinion. I will track it. I'll keep track of all the numbers and snap counts and where everybody's lining up once everybody's healthy. Let's see if that's what they do and if it has results, and then we can kind of finish off this narrative for good. But anyway, not a good day for the Chargers. I'm not in full panic mode, though. The Colts are just wheeling right now. All right, like I said, these last 2 games are going to be snapshot analysis. I mean, these were horrible football games. Miami at Cleveland, bad weather game. Cleveland just dominates. I mean, the meme of the bad weather Dolphins gets worse and worse every time they play in bad weather. Tua turned the ball over, made a full appearance in this game, and Cleveland played hard for their head coach. It couldn't have been more clear in this game which locker room wanted to play for their head coach. Cleveland played physical. They played like they wanted to win. Miami looked like they wanted nothing to do with that game. And good on Cleveland. I mean, it's at least positive to say they want to play for that head coach. So that's really all I got on this one. I mean, obviously, like Judkins looked good. Fannin had a nice day. The defense played great for Cleveland, but not a great game to watch. That's for sure. And then Raiders Chiefs. This game was over in the second quarter. I mean, the Chiefs were just playing with their food in this game, literally doing. I mean, really funny what they did with Mahomes. They tried to do the fake snap. He walks up to the line. They move guys around. They do the hard snap like every team does. And I got such a good laugh. He said, "Shout out to all of my State Farm commercials for the acting lessons," because it was good acting. He's like throwing his arms up. He looks at the sideline. He's like, "This never fucking works. It's fucking stupid. This never works." And then he walks up and he goes, "Ha ha ha," and they snap it and they get the first down after the defense relaxes. Just great, man. But yeah, Rashee Rice makes his return. That helped their offense even more. They're just rolling, dude. The defense, obviously, I mean, the Raiders only had 30 plays of offense in this game. They had nothing going. It's bad. It is bad. And talk about a bad culture, a bad locker room. Look, Pete Carroll needs some criticism here, dude. This was supposed to be the point, was that win forever mentality. Pete Carroll comes in. All I'm seeing right now is a room of professional athletes looking at a 74-year-old man that has no answers for everything. And it's like, you know, you can preach win forever and toughness, but if you're not winning football games, you're going to lose that real quick. And I don't know that Pete Carroll makes it through the year, dude. Like, you've got, I mean, some of the comments, man, like Ashton Ginty was saying, like, I'll be honest, like, there hasn't been a winning culture here for a long time. Jacoby Myers was asked, do you still want to be traded? And he was like, oh yeah, of course I do. It is rock bottom for the Raiders. Both sides of the ball are stinking it up. Brutal day. So that's all we got. Thank you so much, you guys, for watching, for listening. If you're on YouTube, if you could please hit that like button if you haven't done that yet, really helps me out. If you're listening to the audio podcast, if you could take a moment to leave a review. If you're sitting around and you have a minute, wherever you might be, I really appreciate it. It's really the best way to help the podcast grow. But I hope you guys enjoyed nonetheless, and I will see you guys for my next piece of content, which should be, well, actually, I can say it. I'm going to be live for Thursday Night Football by myself on the main channel. And then I'm also going to be working on my quarterback tier makers. So we got some exciting content. Should also have a Thursday night recap and the mailbag episode later in the week as well. Patreon picks. Got lots of stuff still coming this week. So love you guys. Appreciate you for watching, for listening, and I'll see you soon. Cheers.